Did we buy something there, or we just leasing it? Okay.
That I believe that is a lease. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of
And
that.
I will be
Hey,
driving
Lord.
to Freeport when
Good. Okay.
99%
We've got everybody here.
Southwalk misuse. Just have to just get some. Just try
We had enough already.
that makes me mad.
Oh, yeah, we know we needed, don't we have to have 2 architects?
One, yeah, one.
Decrease public from what little we get.
Okay.
People don't drive past here as much as they over here.
Are y'all ready to go?
I got a feeling some will.
Some will, but I don't as much
When I
as
say
we can.
We have no
when I say some
staff.
will, I mean
Oh, there's Tim.
Mr. Brown,
Some of them.
giving you a heads
I
up.
just want to maximize
We're about to
input, you know? That's my deal.
kick this baby off. Okay, I hereby call the December 2018 Design Review Board meeting to order. And as always, we will first consider minutes. We have November 1st meeting minutes before us. I've noted one minor correction on page 3, the third paragraph down. There's a reference to Ms. Johns, and I believe that to be should be to Ms. Moore twice in that paragraph. Do we have any other comments, corrections, questions regarding the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept them with the correction, 2 corrections.
A second.
Okay, it's properly moved and seconded. I don't think we do. Do we do comments from the audience? No. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is announcements. Tim? No announcements. Okay. I believe we had a few comments or observations. The 2019 schedule of meetings is not yet on paper, but we will generally continue our first Thursday of the month. Location in January is likely to be here, perhaps, and from there on it may start being in Freeport.
Yeah,
But
we're hoping in February to start being in Freeport, but we'll just have to see how that schedule works out.
plays out. Okay, very good. But as always, I think the July meeting and I believe there's one other meeting during the year that typically gets moved a tiny bit to accommodate the holidays. So, okay, in that case, the next item up is first item to be heard, which is the Taco Bell backlighting deviation request.
Yes, this was continued from the October meeting. The board directed the applicant to contact you to let you know when it was ready, so you could go by there and look at it. Karen did that yesterday. I don't know how many of you had a chance to do that. I did go back by there last night to check it out myself. So I know it was lighting, which you guys said no purple, it's white, and honestly, I forget what the other issue was. There was 2 issues, lighting, color, and something else.
Brightness. Brightness.
Maybe.
I think it was how many lights. I think the standard, I believe the discussion was the standard Taco Bell, the franchise lighting arrangement is quite a bit of light, and in this one, yes, sir. If the applicant's present, certainly invite you to come up and tell us about it.
Hi, Kevin Tingle. I am the general contractor and owner's representative. So just to refresh, because it's been 2 months, we came in originally with obviously a lot more to just refresh everybody's memory. We originally, or the owners originally, requested the typical Taco Bell tower on the corner, and obviously that was not going to meet the standards or the desires for the scenic corridor. That was changed. Then it was desired to actually the slat wall, which is just horizontal metal strips with a gap in between, a design element from Taco Bell. Originally that was to be twice as high as it is now, and that was shortened to also meet the scenic corridor requirements. Then typically that backlighting has a purple wall behind it, so that the lights that are mounted on the back side of the slat wall will create the purple hue, which is the part of their logo system, but it was a separate item here as a slat wall. And so We have changed that and painted the wall the same color as the shopping center, which is a white, off-white color. The other changes that we've made, typically there are 2 rows of LED lights for this height of wall, and we changed that to 1 row only that goes around the slat wall, that they're pointed toward the existing structure. Then the other thing we did, the last thing that we did, we changed the lumens on the light, which is typically 6,000. We backed those down to 4,100 so that they would have a warmer light and they would be significantly different than the actual Taco Bell logo. So that's what we have done, and that's what we had lit up last night. I took probably 20 different pictures, but as we saw from the last meeting, whenever you take a picture and look at it, it just doesn't reflect what you're actually seeing. So the closest thing that I had was this picture, which was taken at twilight. And while this is not completely dark, this was taken about 5, maybe 5:30. What it does show is this is what you see with the human eye. You see that the Taco Bell is more of a white and it's brighter, and then you see a warmer light, subdued light that's on the backlighting for the slat wall. So I have this picture, but this is the only one that I brought because I feel like it.
For those of us who wear multiple readers, can I?
Yes, absolutely.
Multiple read.
Different, you know, I have a 1 for this one, 2
Yeah.
for that one.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's a lot less than rendering.
It is, it's a yellow or.
I made it by last night, but it wasn't until shortly after 7, so the interior lights were on, but the sign, I think, had been turned off at that time, so that's, that was my schedule problem, I couldn't get there any
I
sooner.
turned it off at 5 till 7.
Oh,
Darn.
just missed it. Yep. Anyway, but certainly one thing I observed was that the existing lighting under the soffit is extremely bright. So,
Would you like to accept this photograph into the record as an exhibit?
That's
would you
fine.
yes, please, yes.
Applicant's Exhibit 1.
Okay, did we have anybody who made it by that wants to make any comments?
I did go see it,
Okay.
yeah, and, you notice that it's a really contrast between the white and it's a yellow kind of light.
Right, a
It's
warmer
behind
light.
the slats, and, it gives you that whole larger picture of it. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it.
Okay.
But, did anybody have any other opinions, or? Didn't see.
Well, one of the things I was concerned about, and I voiced this to Karen, was I didn't go by because I was concerned that I'd show, for some reason, I would show up at the same time as another member, or, be standing out there look, or, and be considered some form of a meeting or something like that, so that was.
Oh, the
I'm just-
sunshine law.
Yeah, I'm just for the record, I'm just saying that's the reason I didn't go by, and I did indicate that.
Lee, were you going to? Okay. All right, do we have any other comments from?
Well, it was a big contrast between the one light and the others.
Which one light and?
The light that lights Taco Bell, and the light that lights the slats.
Oh, okay.
And the slats are sort of like the light was lit by, more of a yellow light. And the Taco Bell was bright white.
That's correct.
Mhm.
The one thing that I noticed, and it's just, maybe because I'm an architect, but that I didn't feel like, my impression was that the slats weren't quite really straight. That, I just,
picture.
Not good.
What is that picture?
That was the impression that I got,
Yeah.
you know, when I drove by it.
Should we circulate the picture one more time?
Yeah, can we see the
Yeah.
picture?
Well, they're metal.
You know, it just
Would everybody be,
didn't feel like it was.
I haven't noticed lack of straightness.
Did you see that?
I
Did
didn't
you go by
notice.
here? You went to see it?
Not last night, I couldn't.
I looked at it while it wasn't
Timeframe.
lit? and it
Right.
didn't-
Yeah,
that
me
didn't
too.
jump out at me, but,
I've looked at it unlit, but.
And I just drove by it because I was late for a meeting that I was going there, and I had, you know, and I probably went there about 6:15. And I just drove by it, I made the U-turn, went by it, looked at it, and it was passing by.
I wonder if the
Are
light
there-
is
But it
creating
was just that
an,
the fact that the lights
Yeah.
were different.
arc or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in the photograph even, that it actually, are there, this is a question to you, Mr. Applicant, are there 3 or 4 different sources, or is it a continuous LED strip?
No, it's a continuous LED
LED
strip,
strip,
but
okay.
it does go behind mounting brackets at times. So
Yeah, I
So
think
that
you can
would-
kinda see there's,
so that
there's a
could be-
pattern, but it's fairly even, and it matches up, there's the vertical portion of the edifice, whatever you wanna call it, is, there's a pair, then a space, then a bigger space, paired together. And the appearance that this portion between the, I don't know, I'm not pointing for everybody to see, but the portions between
Right.
the pairs look, I think it may be a shadow that causes them to look a little wider, but they
And
definitely
see,
look
that might,
straight, but
that
maybe
might
they look
have
like they're getting
been
wider.
my impression, because when I went
Yeah.
through, I
Sure.
just drove by it. I
Yeah.
didn't
I'm sure
stop
it's-
and look at it.
Right.
I'm
You
sure
know.
it's all squared up, it's probably some kind of optical weird.
Exactly, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, it's like, because I
Yeah.
drove by it and I didn't stop and look at it because I
Yeah.
was in a hurry.
Just do, I'm sorry, can we go back?
What did you
Um,
think of the Taco Bell, the color, just that sign?
I had no problem with the Taco Bell,
Yeah.
I had absolutely no problem.
And I jumped out and stood,
Uh-huh.
I drove into the parking lot, looked at it, got out of the car, looked at it, talked to a couple guys that I thought might be working there that, it turned out they
Uh-huh.
weren't. Anyway, so the point being
Did
is.
you have a problem with the Taco Bell, or?
No, and I thought that as the applicant represented last time, the fact that it's the end cap of the building and this louver system or slats or whatever we're calling it,
Mhm.
kind of wraps the building. I like it. I think it's good. And I'm sorry I didn't see the color of the light, but
Yeah,
everything that was there that was, to me, I thought was reasonably, it wasn't calling an excessive amount of attention, and it's consistent with their corporate thing.
Yeah. And we had already approved the actual slats anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
right.
This is just
It's
about the
right.
light.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
If it
Okay.
would have been white on white, I think the Taco Bell wouldn't have read as much. You know, if both lights would be the same.
Correct, and
Yeah.
typically they are, because Taco Bell wants it to be bright,
Yeah.
to draw people in, and then the purple color, so this is a significant deviation from what they normally have, and they've accepted that,
Yeah, it is.
so.
That's how
I mean,
fast
I'm
I
not
saw
a
it.
lighting person, but is there anything that could be a little less
I
yellow?
love it, but I don't think there's anything like this.
You mean
You know?
to make it, more like the color of the sign?
No,
Because the sign is white?
You know, yellow's not it's not, you know,
What's-
But is it the
That was
color?
part of our
is-
request, to make it warm
Yeah.
rather than purple. Lourdes, let me ask
Or
you
white,
a
sure.
question, if this is fair, forgive me, but would you agree that that is reasonably representative of
yes,
your impression? Okay,
yes,
all right,
okay.
and that's helpful
And
for us.
couldn't the color difference be the difference of the intensity of the light? That kind of creates a perceived color
Well,
difference.
that's what,
The camera.
And I
that's
don't
what.
want that light intensity the same as the sign.
No, I kinda like that.
It jumped up at me to the yellow, you know, because it felt like it was really yellow.
Okay.
And, but,
Is it yellow, is it intended to be?
well, that was.
It's 4,100
No,
Kelvin.
it's
Yeah,
just
so it's a warmer.
It's just a warmer light because it's 4100.
And it's sitting behind,
And it's sitting behind, and
Behind a
it's,
brown color,
and it's
you know?
projected
Behind
onto
brown.
a wall that is not stark white. So the shopping center itself, I would imagine, has a little bit of gold in that paint, because we had to match it to paint the building. So
And that'll reflect.
And so that would reflect as well. I don't know at this point if we can do something to make it less yellow. I don't know that, but I know that we were intending to get it to that warm color to satisfy the comments from the last meeting.
Yeah, okay.
Is everybody on the board okay if I find out if there's any public interest in comment? Okay. All right. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to comment on this item? All right. Seeing none?
I'm gonna ask you one question. Mr. Brown, did you feel like, because you were here at the last, and we dealt with the purples and the, all of that, do you feel like, because I didn't see it, do you feel like it met the intent of what we were discussing before?
Yeah, I think it's exactly like all their other locations, except instead of purple, it's white, which is a little harsher, really. I mean, the purple is kind of mellow, for lack of a better word. The white, especially the white on white, the sign and the backlighting is a little harsh, but I think it's set up exactly like their other locations. It's just different color.
I don't want purple.
You want purple?
I don't.
Oh.
All right.
I make a motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Do we have any further comment on the board? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you
Thank you.
for.
Thank you very much for working with us.
Working with us. It's a good outcome, I think.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, the next item up is the Miramar Beach Hotel, and it's going to be presented by Tim Brown.
Thank you. This item was continued from the November meeting. This is a major development order application submitted by ECM requesting the approval to develop a 71-unit hotel and associated infrastructure on 1.6 acres with a future land use of Coastal Center. Project's located on the north side of Highway 98, west of Forest Shore Drive and east of North Holiday Road. It is compliant with the scenic corridor regulations, and with that said, I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Okay.
And of course, we have the applicant here to present.
Okay, do we have any initial questions to the staff before we hear
I
from the
do.
applicant?
Is this the same people, the same hotel that they're building down the street across from McDonald's? Is there any relation at all?
I don't think so. These are the same people that have the adjacent parcel in the business.
Cigar place?
Yes, it's the same people. Same, they own both properties, same people.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't think it has anything to do with the other one, no.
Okay.
I mean, you can ask the applicant. He may have a different answer, but as
Okay.
far as I know, there isn't an association.
Okay. Would the applicant please come forward, and we're invite you to make any sort of presentation you wish.
Daryl Barnhill, representing ECM as the project manager. We brought our landscape architect and our building architect with us this afternoon. We've also been notified by Mr. Brown that there was no deficiencies in our submittal. So I think that you should have in your package everything that our two professionals should be talking about tonight. And with that said, I will step back and let the building architect and the landscape architect, unless you have any general questions for me.
Anybody have any questions?
Do you have any site questions? Any issues about the site plan?
Not yet.
None at this time, sir. So if
Okay.
anybody else wants to come up, that'd be great. Thank you.
Anthony Valley for ECM. The project has the short end of the building facing 98, so it's always awkward when you have the short. When you have the short portion facing along the side. But because you do get a lot of visibility, mainly from the corners, because that does set back a little bit. In addition to the focus along the road, we really tried to break up the side elevations. We had some movements in and out along the back, along the side, to try to get some additional interest along that area. And then there is focus alongside the portion where they do. With prototypes, you end up with stairwells on the corners and on the ends, but trying to break that up as well. Different materials, patterns, stucco and siding mix. And then trying to get some, again, because you do see so much of the side, as you drive down 98, you really don't get any views as much as you get side views. Trying to break that up as much as possible. It is a flat roof, but we do have stepping along the front and sides in addition to changes in depth along those areas. There are no rooftop AC units. These have no common rooms to speak of. It's really just the rooms themselves, which are all self-contained packing units within the room, so there's no rooftop equipment for that. The only common rooms are at the lower level and very small, and those are handled by essentially residential scale equipment, which is ground, located on the ground behind the building. So nothing on the roof, nothing out front of consequence, and just the normal site necessities for water and sewer and fire.
Tony, can you raise the board a
Sure.
little bit, because I can't see it.
Have these in the package as well.
We do,
They
yep.
were, it's
Yeah.
not near that big.
Also, there are some bigger ones, have a little bit of visibility.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's good.
Again, just trying to create some texture and pattern so that you don't just have a big blank side on these things. And it is adjacent, the cigar factory location, if you're familiar with it, is over here. We also did that one.
And it's all white, correct?
It's all white
With
with a
brown.
bronze roof.
But the short part is parallel to 98.
The short end,
Correct.
Okay.
98 is
Okay.
along.
Okay.
So as you're driving past it, if you're heading west, this is essentially the corner you see past landscape areas, which Brad can talk about.
Well, it's also nice because it's got variety as you go in depth.
Just trying to break it up. These
Right.
boxes get very awkward and they're very difficult to deal
What
with.
does that west elevation look like?
It's almost identical, it's actually identical, it just doesn't
Okay.
have the entry portion.
Okay, okay.
I don't, let me see if I have one. You can catch a glimpse of it. We did introduce some shading devices to create some shadows along the side on the west. So throughout the day, you will have actual shading that'll help give you some variety as well along the surfaces. But otherwise, it's essentially the same, just without the entry portion. I apologize, it's a little small.
It also gives it a little more detail, which is nice.
Yes. Tony, any other rooftop equipment, non-HVAC that would be visible?
No HVAC. The
Non,
only thing that we could have is just for the elevator itself.
The
but it
elevator
wouldn't
core.
be- It wouldn't be it shouldn't be the core, but it should be just the core itself,
Right,
not.
the-
Right. But the stair portion is taller than any of that, and it's in the center, so it should be.
And where's the elevator locator's in the center, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So if it's in the center of the building, I don't think we're gonna see it.
You actually get
I'm sorry.
an idea of it from the rooftop plan,
Yeah.
so it's back.
And how much higher than the rooftop is it?
Based on previous projects, they've been 4 to 5 from the roof deck, but we have a fair bit along the edge.
Right.
So it's only, it's within a.
You wouldn't see it
So
from
you
the
can
highway.
only see it with a helicopter.
You'd have to be up high, yeah.
That's good. That's what we want.
Is that brick on the bottom of the building? Is that a brick?
No, it's a pattern on the, that pattern is hardy siding,
Okay.
so it's a cementous siding material for the front tower portion, and then on the back, which is facing away from 98, we have it as well. Stucco in the center portion, so these, what looks a little pinkish is not pink. What looks a little pink there is the stucco, broad siding through there, a tighter siding here, to give it a little bit more texture along the
It's not pink, what is it? It does look pink.
It is the 5Y91 is from the muscle book. We have
All the colors are within the ranges
it's straight
in
out
the
of
code, yeah, yeah, straight, yeah.
It's down straight out of the book.
Yep.
So Tim could give us that one from the chart in the back.
Good, yep. Yeah, my printer made it look a little pink too, so, yeah. we have any other questions or comments for Mr. Valet? All right, do we have any other, oh, there you go. Brad, are you gonna,
Landscape architect,
Yep.
Brad.
okay?
I don't have any big pretty pictures, but I am here to answer questions.
Okay. Just one observation, this is one of the portions of the corridor that has overhead power lines, and so the oaks are being replaced with, okay, yep, good. All right.
Karen, by chance, do you have a paper copy of this one? 'Cause I didn't get it. The Miramar Beach Hotel?
Okay, I have if nobody else has any questions, I have just one on the, I don't know which one of you to direct this to, but lighting plan. The lighting levels look fantastic, very even and relatively subdued and low. It does indicate on the plan that the standards are 30 feet tall. And I believe the new code has been adopted and the maximum height allowed now is 14 feet. So,
If you want to make that,
Is it not
if,
been adopted yet?
I'm not sure.
we were not aware of that change when we
Okay.
got this design, but,
I guess I'll ask staff, has that actually, it's been in process for a long time and maybe it has not yet been adopted?
Which one? I'm sorry, I was out.
In the latest, it's chapter 6. And this is something that, who is working on, forgive me, I'm not remembering the staff person that was working.
Kristen?
Kristen was, yes,
Yeah,
Shell was working on this. And so this is an email from a while back, but it, I guess the one that I have is still a work progress draft, so I guess it hasn't made it to the, County Commission
The
yet.
reduction of the height of the light
Oh, yes.
poles
I,
above 14.
I've been, maybe I failed to tell you guys, but I've been telling everyone that's gonna get adopted.
yes, okay,
The pole's limited to 14 feet in height.
Yeah.
I've been trying to let everyone know that.
okay. In this case, I don't wanna upset the apple cart. The lighting levels, the light on the ground is great in terms of the intensity of it, and I hate to, if these lights were to become shorter,
that was not my
We'd have-
accident.
yeah, we would
Like
have to
that.
double the number of them. So, I don't fundamentally have a problem with it, and I don't think it's, you don't necessarily hold people to a code that doesn't, exist yet, but-
Condition, if that's wishes of the board. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's not in the code, it's coming,
yeah.
so you can still make it a
Yeah.
condition of the
Here is the other nice thing about this, although they own the adjacent property as well, is all of the light fixtures are fairly well inboard of the property. One of the motivations for the shorter fixed standards is that most typically, the lights are put around the perimeter of the parking lot, and the perimeter of the parking lot is pushed up against the lot lines, therefore, a substantial portion of the light, if you have a tall pole, is gonna be thrown onto the neighbor's property. And so, in this case, the poles are all inboard of the edge of the property, and they're on the side of the property that is adjacent to the cigar.
Right. And what you can tell by the lighting plan, we, looked at the backsplash lighting as part of the lighting plan.
Yeah.
Instead of a nuisance. And so, we encompassed the candela distribution as, on the backsplash lighting, toward the property line. So,
Yeah.
again, that wasn't by accident.
Okay. And then the only other, I didn't notice if this was indicated anywhere, but do you happen to know what the color, Kelvin, of the fixtures is?
Not offhand. In our application, we gave a detailed, we got the fixture information from from our supplier that did the lighting plan. And in that application, there should have been a detail to answer all those questions.
Okay. And this would be in the same revision that is making its way slowly but surely through the process, and that is, our preference is, well, in the new code, it will actually require that they be between 3,000 and 5,000 Kelvin, so
Right.
if,
I'm not seeing the Kelvins.
Yeah, well, it's not, I don't think it's in our packet, but I believe it's not in the packet we received, but I believe it's in the larger packet that they submitted. So, again, if it's not between, most commonly, it would, if it were not within that range, it would be most likely to be 6,000 Kelvin. So if it is 6,000 Kelvin and you could bring it into 3,000 to 5,000, we'd appreciate it.
If the board wants to, to make that part of the approval, then, we're quite a few months down the road from getting a development order, so we can make that, change.
Okay.
If you want to make it just
Yeah,
part of
we'll
the
make it part of the
approval,
motion.
submit
Okay.
it back to the county.
Yep. And then my last comment, which I believe would be directed to you, is the site plan, the lighting plan, I think is the only drawing in here, but it shows this. Y'all's, I guess that would be western side of the property, shows a future connection, and then there's the property to the west has a future connection, and the two don't quite line up, and I'm wondering if we require interconnectivity, isn't now the time to make that? If the other property, in fact, has a stub out, shouldn't we line up and make the connection?
What we had to do is there's quite a few complicated issues right there at that intersection. Primarily an easement that gets us to the property to the east.
Yep.
And then the required setbacks, the frontal landscaping requirement, and then the required 20 feet parking spaces. And so when we sat down and done the technical points of it, of the required landscape buffers and the required 20-foot setbacks or for the vehicle parking, that's the connection and that we've got now. We were not proposing that we build a connection. We're just gonna leave that as an option.
Okay.
So, there has not been any request, for us to actually build a connection through there.
Okay.
On the east or the west side?
We are on the east side, yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
you're talking about the
on the
west
west
side.
side.
Yeah,
It'd be great.
yeah. Tim, can you,
Yeah,
Gee,
the
Mr.
code
Marshall.
requires if it's I don't know why, but it says if it's an adjacent vacant parcel. So if it's an adjacent developed parcel, then there's no requirement.
so we have one
That makes
existing
no
parcel.
sense.
I know, but
Yeah,
that's
so
what the
we've got
code
two parcels
says.
and they've got driveways like
Change it.
this and we don't,
Well, I think,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's an error on that plan, because like Darrell said, they didn't actually they weren't proposing a connection to the west. And if it was required, I would have required it, but the code does say it's only and it says shall, not should, it shall have interconnection if it's an adjacent vacant parcel. But I think that's actually an error on that plan, because none of the other plans show a connection.
no, it doesn't show a connection. The other plans
Shows a
don't
missing
indicate. My comment was, is the other site plans don't indicate what's on the parcel to the west.
Mm.
The lighting plan shows me what's on the parcel to the west, and it shows a probably at the time code compliant. And the parcel to the west indicates that it's the sleep center.
Right,
And so the sleep center built
a
the
stub
code
out.
required future connection.
Mhm.
And,
There's a tree in it right now.
yeah, so I guess the point being is that, we may need to look at that, because if we're requiring people to build future connections, and then when the day comes to put the connection in, we go, whoop, never mind.
No, I
it's
agree
kind of waste.
completely,
That's a
I agree
problem.
completely.
That's a waste.
And it's like
I mean,
this
if we could get,
much distance. Like, I want to know.
if we can get traffic off of 98,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole.
So, yeah, anyway, yeah, that's the intent of it, and I think it's a nice thing. It also, pedestrian activity between the two, et cetera, so.
Yeah,
The sidewalk does appear to connect, so maybe that's already built by the,
that's good.
yeah, that was built by, FDOT probably, so.
That's true, Tim. That's a problem.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
so I don't,
We need to change the code.
yeah. What is the next stop for this,
planning commission.
Planning commission.
It'll go to next month, the January planning commission.
and has the technical review committee already looked at this?
Yeah, they have to
Okay.
move it forward to this board. So it doesn't come to you guys until it's
TRC's looked
come
at
out
it?
of TRC.
Okay. It would be within the purview of the planning folks to require that connection?
Yes,
Yeah, okay,
yes.
all right.
I do
Is
want
it
to point
not
out one
within
thing.
hours? Is it not within hours? I thought interconnectivity was part of the,
Well, it is,
Code,
it's in the
Chapter
code,
13.
but it's not, I mean, you guys can make any
I know.
conditions you want, but it's not a requirement of the code. The code says if it's a developed parcel, which I
Makes no
agree makes no sense, it's not required.
I did want to mention one thing,
Yeah.
and that is that if you look at the parking lot for the adjacent property, they're actually into the scenic corridor, what looks like about 5 feet.
Yeah.
So that's what's actually affecting the connectivity, is that they're not in compliance with the guidelines that we're in compliance with.
Yeah.
So by having parking in the same location that we have parking, it forces that aisle to not align, which is probably part of the reason that they didn't require that connectivity, because it would actually remove parking from some existing uses, or it would conflict with, their
I think-
location within the buffers.
This looks.
Yeah, looking at it, it looks like the sleep center maybe has a driveway down the east side of the property, so I think,
It has a
Even
couple of
the-
things going on that are an issue, but
yeah.
what causes the misalignment is actually that their parking
Oh, yeah,
spaces
yeah,
are
no, I
actually into the
understood.
buffer.
Yeah, understood.
So
They're,
in this particular case, it would be difficult.
Yeah.
We would have we'd be trying to reply to something that was a non-compliance on their part to try to, we're absorbing their problem in that case if we're trying to create that alignment in this particular case.
yeah.
Unless it was a single drive, but I'm not sure if that would be allowed.
Yeah.
Now, if
Okay.
they'd allow a
It's
single
gotta be
drive, hey,
doable.
I'm great with that. I love connectivity, because
I do
there's
too.
nothing more absurd than having to go out onto 98 to go next door, or to have to
Yes.
park in your neighbor
That's what
because
we're
you
getting
missed the
at.
turn,
Horrible.
and that's absolutely ridiculous.
That's what we're getting at, right
Yeah.
here.
However,
Right there, how do
if they would allow a single drive, that would change it, because what happens is the plan doesn't allow a single drive. In this case, it would work, and it would
But-
resolve the conflict with
Yeah.
their nonconformity.
Could you just curve it?
Yeah, well, where I was headed is that it may be if the driveway occurred, according to you all's parking alignment, if I'm understanding the sleep center's site plan, it would tie into a travel lane, so the fact that it doesn't line up with the parking across the way, there's, looks like something in the order of magnitude of 50 or 60 feet for a car to make this light jog as it then goes between the other, the parking bays to the, west. Okay, well, maybe when we make our motion, maybe be a separable motion to ask the planning board to
Review that.
consider it. Yeah, I mean, it's a little awkward because neither property owner at this point probably has the obligation to accept the fix, but
Looks like something
Yeah.
inexpensive.
But
Your
Yeah.
understanding, Mr. Valley said it a lot more eloquently than I said it, is the fact that when we were designing it as per code with the corridor and the setbacks and the parking, then our design meets your proposed code.
Mhm.
So the fact that theirs don't, we ask you not to penalize, not to try
Well, we're not
to
talking about
bring our
penalizing-
nonconformity.
Yeah, what we're talking about is that, I understand the southern edge of your parking bay is further north by a few feet.
Right?
But the connection to their property is not into a bay of parking, it's into a north-south travel lane.
Right.
And so if the connection were to happen on y'all's geometry and just extend across the property line, and then, and this is the tough part, some party fix the misalignment, we could solve that problem, and that could be important. It could prevent an accident down the road. It could,
Well, I mean,
sell an extra mattress. It could result in an extra customer smoking a cigar.
they could stub it
So-
out, but, I mean, that misalignment really couldn't be addressed until that property redeveloped. And it's a fairly old property, that's why it's non-conforming. I mean,
Okay.
that's been there a long time.
Yeah,
All right.
predated, I'm
I'm
sure.
gonna propose
Predates
that.
me coming to the county.
Yeah.
But I think if you were gonna make a condition, I think it would be appropriate for this board, because it's dealing with the scenic corridor.
Yeah.
I mean, the planning commission, they have this type of purview as well, but I think it would be appropriate from this board, because it's strictly dealing with the scenic corridor.
Yeah, but I guess I have a problem making approval of the site, approval of the hotel contingent on something that is awkward because of a misalignment that
Well, yeah,
appears to have been
I
caused
think
by the
all we can
adjacent
really
property.
require them to do is stub it out.
Yeah,
Because, like they said, I mean, they can't do anything about what's on the other property.
yeah.
So,
Well, let me ask one other question then. The parking, the amount of parking that's provided, and forgive me if I missed the note on another part of the packet, but, do you all have any parking in excess of what's required?
I think there's two.
Okay. Cause Lee, to your point, if we were to, the only way to feasibly create a slight jog would be to delete probably 2 parking spaces.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm gonna propose to the board that we make a separate motion that is directed to the planning board and the county staff to investigate the possibility of figuring out a way to make this connection, but I personally am a little hesitant to make it a contingency of the approval of the project. It seems like it's putting the burden on the wrong person.
I agree. I would love to see the other property owner cooperate. I mean,
If it turns out that they violated
probably a pipe
yeah.
dream. I think I think they predated the code.
Okay.
So it would be a good community servant, a good corporate citizen type thing.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll
It's
renovate.
worth an
it.
ask.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, or put it in the file that if they
They can,
request for
all they can say is
renovation in
no.
the future.
All
then
they
we-
can say is no.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
and if we don't ask, it'll definitely be no.
Okay, well, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. Do you mind if I find out if there's any interest in the public, the audience of comments? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to comment on this project? Okay. What's next? Action.
I move to approve. Are we gonna
Well,
have
we
any
got,
contingencies?
I think you wanna do it separately, don't you?
yeah, well, yeah, as regard to the connection, but remember, we have, we do want to include a, request that if the site lighting is greater, to have site lighting that is between 3,000 and 5,000 Kelvin
Okay,
in color.
okay, so I move to approve with contingency of them providing lighting that is between 3,000 and 5,000 Kelvin.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Been moved and seconded. Lourdes, and Ms. Moore. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a question? Okay.
Are you gonna do anything with the height of the pedestals?
I think that the lighting levels are good.
Okay.
I think the light fixtures are far enough from the property lines that the reason for the shorter standards is already accommodated, so I'm gonna suggest that we don't need to do that. If they chose to redesign the lighting, that'd be awesome, but I don't think it's a problem in this particular case.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Okay, so we were halfway through with that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we want to send something to the planning board in terms of an action regarding this interconnectivity, and maybe a 2-part thing? I think if the revisions to the code are not too far along.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
If we chose to go to the lower ones, do we have to come back for permission, or can that be part of the motion that if we chose?
Oh, great idea.
to lower-
Okay, so can we,
Amend it.
how do we correct that?
Well, no, I think we can just note for the record that our
Right.
intention is that,
We would approve it.
yeah.
I don't think so. I mean. if
The
you don't-
intent is to get them compliant with
Yeah,
the
right.
process that is in place.
So we just don't wanna delay, cause that creates costs for the client, and it probably costs as much as the homes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, only if you guys want that to happen, then make it a condition.
I'm just speaking as a designer,
We just don't have to come back.
Well, you can say it
Yeah.
on the record that you're gonna do it.
We'll do it.
okay, awesome, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Given the height of this building also, it's great if they do it, but what looks odd is 30-foot poles next to a 1-story building that are next to the property line. That's the classic problem. This building appears to be more than 30 feet tall, so it's proportionally, I don't think it'd be an issue. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is Origins Crossing. And Renee is Renee here?
Well,
I'll
she's
see.
the project, but I did the scenic corridor review.
Okay, in that case, Tim Brown.
They farmed it out to me. Okay, so this is a major development or application submitted by McNeil Carroll Engineering, requesting approval to develop 217 multifamily apartments on approximately 19.87 acres with the future land use of Coastal Village 1. Project's located on the north side of Highway 98, approximately 1/4 mile east of Watersound Parkway. So it's part of Watersound. It's part of St. Joe's development. There was 2 deficiencies, one that has subsequently been brought into compliance. There was no information concerning existing trees. You know, the code says you're supposed to identify any tree 6 inches or greater within the scenic corridor. And they were proposing some plant material that's not allowed, that's not identified in chapter 13, but they have since resolved that. They are using approved plant material. So at this point, there's just that one outstanding issue that, I mean, they've already indicated all the trees are gonna come down. They're not gonna save any of those trees, but they didn't actually identify any of the trees within the buffer that's required by the code. So with that said, I'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
So landscaping is really the only issue that was outstanding?
Yes, everything else is, well, the landscaping has been resolved now. They subsequently have resolved it. So the only, and I don't know that it's a big deal, but the code says you identify all the trees, and this is a heavily wooded site, 6 inches DBH or greater within the scenic corridor buffer. They didn't do that. But in terms of landscaping, they're actually putting in more than what's required.
They're putting in things that are actually authorized?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
And they're putting in
corrected.
actually more than what's required. But yes, initially they had some plant materials that are native, but aren't in the chapter 13 list of approved plants. They have since changed those to approved plants. So the landscape is good to go.
Would it be fair to say that the trees that they did not identify are just these small
Yeah,
sticks,
they're
pine tree sticks?
They're planted pines.
Okay.
So technically, Tim, is there any, since it is a requirement, I mean, are we okay letting that slide without a deviation?
Well, I think so because
See what I mean?
they're taking them down anyway. There's nothing in the code that
Correct.
requires you to save trees.
Correct.
You do get credit for them, though. If you save the trees, you get credit. But, you know, most of these developments we've been getting, they just clear cut it and plant. And there's nothing in the code that prevents that. So I don't think it's a big deal. It's just most of the time we get some information. This time we did not.
I don't think it's a big deal either, but technically, but I'm worried about the process, you know, maintaining our consistency of process.
Well, typically what they do is they put a note that says no existing trees to remain, and I let that stand as, I mean, do we really need to know what it is if it's coming out? If they identify all these trees are going to be removed, but unfortunately that note wasn't provided on this plan, but that's how they usually take care of it. They just said, okay, none of these trees are going to be saved, and
Well, we can get verbal confirmation of that
we
tonight.
roll from there.
All right.
So, you ready for the applicant?
Yes, any other questions for staff? All right. And if y'all could introduce yourselves just for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. My name is Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. I am the civil engineer and engineer of record. Regarding the notation, yes. So we needed to add the words that says all trees to be removed, and that's as simple as it is. That note will get added before we go in front of planning board, but we are here on the record stating that, yes, the trees will be removed. The site is having to be elevated due to water table issues, so there's not really a way to save the trees, and we're providing trees that are going to enhance it anyway. So, again, we are going above and beyond what the landscape criteria is. I'm going to give you just a quick brief of what the project is. Tim summed it up great. It is a multifamily project located on the north side of Highway 98 near Watersound. It is 19.87 acres. Typically on a site like this, we see more units, but this one is limited to the 217 units. The amount of parking required is 437. We're actually putting 456, so we are providing some additional parking. It does help, and it is based on the number of bedrooms in the units. So we are over parking. St. Joe owns the lands around it. The property to the east here is all wetlands. We're staying out of those. We're creating a wet detention pond in here, which will be an amenity feature. Be walking trails around it, some enhanced dog parks, and some nice stuff on the property for all the guests to have something nice in an amenity area there. Water sound is located up in here. We're doing a common roadway that comes and that will service Origins Commercial in the future. So we're doing a common access which will service multi-projects. So it's not just for us. So instead of doing shared driveways, we're actually doing a shared roadway, which will service future commercial in the future. We have two different types of buildings on the property. There's 3-story and 4-story buildings. You kind of got these pods that you see in here. These are the 3 stories. And then we've got the 4 stories that are in the back. Lee, he's going to speak here in just a minute regarding the architecture, colors, features, anything. But that's just kind of a broad base of what the scope is. I'm just here to talk about the site itself. I don't know if you have any specific questions or not.
I have just one question on the lighting. And again, I think the plan is indicative that it's fully compliant. The light fixtures are great. And all the specs in terms of the Kelvin and everything is within the, what we'd love to see. And the photometric plan is indicative of fairly short standards, but I couldn't find anywhere that it actually notes what the height of the poles are.
I'll let you just Lee introduce himself.
I'm Lee Sims with Studio Scarab Architecture in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
And I'm the architect for the project. The light standards that we'll be using on the property, they're all 14 feet high.
Perfect. Okay.
Do not
Wonderful.
exceed 14 feet high.
Awesome.
It's
Yeah.
actually a standard that St. Joe has chosen for the overall development.
Okay. Good. Yeah, lighting looks great.
Haven't attended one of your meetings before, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. Let me just tell you, I guess, a couple of brief things about the design of the project. The buildings are all relatively low-rise buildings. As Robert said, there are 11 3-story buildings on the property. There are 2 4-story buildings on the property. None of the buildings exceed the height of 50 feet, I believe it is, under the methodology calculations. And we've taken into account the average amount of fill under these buildings, which in some cases is probably 2 or 3 feet average. The architecture is, I guess you could characterize it as a craftsman style. Basically, it's a wood-clad building. We're using hardy siding and trim. It's a cementitious material, but it looks like wood siding and trim. The roofs will be architectural style shingles in a weathered gray color. The colors of the buildings, they're notated up here. I apologize for the color doesn't show up very well on that left-hand side, but these are all colors that are selected from the Munson Book of Colors that are approved by the code. And basically a kind of a light, soft gray color on the siding, white trim, accents of kind of a, I would call it a sort of a driftwood green, darker accent, where we use a shaped siding for accent. And the buildings are grouped in what I would lay out in kind of a village fashion. It's not going to be like your typical apartment development where you've got buildings just sort of planted in the landscape. It's very much planned and laid out in a way that it'll give a very pleasant, nicely scaled street scene. The taller buildings that Robert pointed out, the 2 4-story buildings are actually on the northeast portion of the property, which is adjacent to, on the north side, is actually a 100-foot power line easement through there, so there'll be no development along in that piece. And then north of that, of course, is water sound development. And to the east is the conservation wetland area that will be undisturbed in perpetuity, I assume. So those buildings really are far back in the corner of the property, and because of perspective and all, they will appear much lower than they actually are, while the other buildings are grouped along the new street that comes in to serve this property as well as the commercial side. And the when Robert mentioned that, I guess Tim did, that we're exceeding the landscape requirements in this development. It's, I have worked for many, many years with this developer and more recently with the partnership between the developer Home Corp and St. Joe. And my experience has been that all of these developments are very lavishly landscaped. I mean, they're very attractive, they're well managed, very successful company, and they stand the test of time. So, so I'm proud to be associated with that.
It looks very nice. I like the way it's laid out.
Ma'am?
I like the way it's laid out, where
Oh.
the buildings are all kind of, like you said, they're not just all in a box.
And we have gone to some lengths to conceal all the utility appurtenances, you know, AC units, transformers, water meters, things of that nature. The four-story building air conditioning units are actually concealed on the roof behind the mansard, so you don't see. In a building that's got, you know, 50 some odd units in it, you can imagine it would get pretty crowded down on the ground with these individual units. So we've collected them on the roof and concealed them behind the architecture of the roof slope.
Since you mentioned it, and this is one of, well, it's become actually, I think now, all of our points of focus. That rooftop equipment, I would just say, make sure that it is not visible from any point on 98, because a lot of, we're running into this a lot on very recent developments that we've approved that showed no visible, but, you know, your elevation of the road can change, and when you get further back, a little further off, I'm sure y'all have made sure, just make sure, I'm telling you,
Well,
it has driven us crazy.
Spent a fair amount of time on that issue as well as
Yeah.
other buildings would appear, but you can see that the slope of the roof that you see from the outside all the way around is comes up to this point. It's about, I believe it's somewhere around 6 feet or more above the actual roof depth itself. These units will, without exception, will be small condensing units like you would have in a small residence. They serve one apartment each.
Gotcha.
You know, they're just those little small.
They're probably 4 feet tall.
Hmm.
4 feet tall,
No,
max.
not a
Yeah.
residential.
With-
No, they're shorter than that. That's all.
They probably
The one-
stand maybe 2 feet off the ground.
Two and a half
I was
feet.
gonna say, that's
Well,
a big air conditioner.
Oh, I'm just looking at mine.
Yeah.
My house is tall.
But they're not, you know, typically these units are maybe 1,500 square feet.
Okay, that's why, yeah.
So you might have a 3-ton unit or something on it. I'm not sure what the calculation, but it'd be small by residence.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, my point was, you have a 6-foot parapet there with that
Yeah.
angle, so
Mhm.
it'll cover it. Even if there were 4 feet, it would cover it.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have a problem.
What's the unit mix, just for my own information?
I can't recall right offhand. It's primarily 2-bedroom units. I believe we have 22 3-bedroom units. They're all ground floor, very nice units in the first-story buildings. I would say they're probably 2-to-1 ratio of 2 bedrooms to 1 bedroom.
And what are you looking at project time, you thinking? What are you thinking project time?
You can start construction.
Yeah.
I think they want to start sometime, let me, then exactly, we're talking about sometime in March, February, March.
Yeah, they're 3 to 5, and I think they're doing 3,000. The range is exactly what we like from that manufacturer.
Great.
21?
No surprise.
21. 20? You saying 20 or 21?
Well, we'll be starting in 19, and it'll take about 14, 15 months to construct.
So you'll be, okay.
So we're looking at
Mid-
really,
20.
first half of the 20.
Looks like you've done a very nice job. I like the colors. They're pretty.
I have one other question. It's kind of a combo of a site infrastructure and landscaping question. in the I guess it would be the southeast corner of the property on 98, I think there is maybe a sanitary lift station, and it looks, is that a pretty standard type setup where it's pretty much, most of it's in the ground and there might be a box or two poking
Yes.
out of the ground? It's not got a bunch of elevated stuff? One control panel, okay, great. And in that case, the landscaping looks sufficient to screen it from the road. Okay, thank you.
And speaking of landscaping, of course, we talked about the trees really having to be removed because the site's going to be elevated a fair amount. Along 98 in buffer area, we'll have a very heavily planted landscape scheme, so it'll really add an attractive buffer along there for Highway 98.
Okay.
All right.
And the same corner of the property I was just mentioning, is it a little leftover piece of old concrete drive or something that's out in the right of way?
This little thing?
I'm looking at, if it helps, I'm looking at sheet 5, LA 5. Oh, okay.
There's 2 sets of drainage connections.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's where, when the, I guess, Regional put the new plumbing in, they accidentally made that little bump was higher than the crown of the road or something like that. Okay, yep, understood. It's not y'all's, put it that way. Yep, okay, yep, all right. Awesome, that's it for me. Okay, since everyone's quiet up here, I'll just ask for that indication. Is there anybody in the audience who wish to speak to this project? All right, for the record, there is nobody indicating such, so what is y'all's pleasure?
Just a quick question, were we able to do I'm just looking, I can't find it quickly, the live oaks across the front? Do we have those? The live oaks, were we able to get the live oaks power line issue, across the front?
Yep.
Great, that's gonna be pretty.
I'd like to add one thing. He was talking about the height of the buildings. They do have an architectural feature that exceeds the 50 feet, but it's well within in a scenic corridor, you can go to 70 feet.
Yeah.
So it's compliant, but I just want you to be aware of it. The buildings meet, but that architectural feature does actually go to like 59 feet, which is allowable.
Yeah. All right.
Just to clarify, you can't build to 70 feet, period, just with architectural features.
Yes, it's non-habitable, but it's allowed to go 20 feet above, so 70 feet. We don't have any out there that tall, but the code does allow for that. But strictly an architectural feature, non-habitable area.
That's what I was making the distinction.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
I didn't want anybody to
element
freak out.
accent.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep. Who's
Motion to approve.
Second.
say properly moved and seconded? Do we have any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor indicate by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, next item up is Topsail West PUD Restaurant.
Yes, thank you. This is also a St. Joe project. You may or may not remember that they amended the PUD over the summer to take out gas station, convenience store, and add restaurant. Well, this is the restaurant. So the request, it's a minor development order application submitted by Buchanan and Harper, requesting approval to construct a 3,500 square foot restaurant within the approved Topsail West PUD on 6.06 acres with the future land use of Town Center 2. It's located at the northeast corner of West Hewitt and Highway 98. And it is in compliance with the scenic corridor regulations. So with that said, I'll answer any questions the board may have.
Do we know what restaurant this is?
We do not. They have told me contractually they cannot tell me what it is.
Do we know if it's a fast food restaurant or if it's not?
Well, it doesn't have a drive-through.
Okay.
it's a sit-down restaurant. Although when they did the overlay, just information, when they did the overlay district, that would allow for a drive-through, but this restaurant does not have a drive-through.
All right, anybody else have any other questions for staff, or are we ready for the applicant's
I
presentation?
have a question for the attorney.
Yes, sir.
And this, and I apologize, this just kind of hit me. I have some contractual agreements with St. Joe. Do I need to recuse myself from?
If there's any possibility that the decision that you're about to make this evening would inure to your special private gain or loss, then you would, want to recuse yourself. If you're not sure, then I would just recommend you recuse out of an abundance of caution.
Okay. It shouldn't, but, I mean, I just wanted to get that on the record. Okay. Question for the applicant, the convenience store that you pulled, is that the Busy Bee that they put in Panama City? It wasn't? Okay. Cause I know, I just saw something, read something that St. Joe was going into a partnership with somebody to do a convenience store in Panama City Beach.
My name's Ben Mormon. I'm with St. Joe Company, project manager. The Busy Bee was no relation to this. The convenience store that was on the PUD was it was set up whenever the PUD was created. But since there's Murphy's all across the street,
Right.
there was not a good
Okay,
use for the property.
it was just a curious question, that's all.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Can we call a quick recess? I wanted to talk to your attorney real quick, explain something to her. Ms. Rogers.
Sure, yeah, so, is 5 minutes sufficient?
3 is sufficient.
Okay, we're going to recess the meeting for 3 minutes. That's not an action item, is it? We just, Chairman just proclaims it? All right.
Declare that.
Don't often get to exercise my power. We stand recused.
We're all the same age?
They're the same age,
I
I
don't think so.
Oh, come on.
I think I got a couple of years on a couple of you.
Married longer than most people are, and living at this table. You may be the exception.
Yeah, I'm the exception. I'm the exception.
Okay, we got everybody back?
Yeah.
Okay, we ready to go? Okay, we're back in session. Okay, let's see, we were just taking care of questions and answers. Did we have any other questions from the board to the applicant?
What, rooftop equipment, do we have any, where's your HVAC?
Yeah, basically we have a flat slope or a roof that sloped internal drains, and yes, we've got parapets that we're going to screen those with parapets. So we'll be looking at that closely. to
How
make
tall
sure
are your
that those screened.
parapets?
Pardon me?
So, I'm sorry, how tall are your parapets?
Well, we can adjust that based on the final HVAC equipment, but that's what we're going to look at is we'll make sure that when we do the final model, we'll have the sizes of the equipment and make sure that, you know, your sight lines are taken care of in terms of not being exceeded.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. Like some of the other projects that have come before us tonight, the lighting levels on the photometric plan look reasonable. There are a couple of spots that are a little near the entrance and the accessible parking, which that's reasonable that those would be a little bit brighter. So, but I'm not fully understanding. There is a lighting fact sheet from Chelco that is part of the package, and forgive me if I missed it, but I'm not seeing any indication of which of these fixtures is being used, and since some of them would be, in my opinion, unacceptable, I just want to make sure we know which in this lighting fact sheet are the ones being used.
The shoebox fixture is the one that's selected, and that's what the
Okay.
photometric is
Yeah.
showing. It's
Okay.
a 14-foot
Yep.
pole,
Okay.
and it's, you know,
And-
the fixture shines straight down.
Yep, okay, that's a good, so that's, that works. And then the other question is, although, as I discovered, the requirement to be between 3 and 5,000 K is not yet formally part of the code, but we would appreciate you trying to be somewhere in that range. So, okay.
Do you wanna make that condition too?
I think that'd be reasonable. And then, Tim, this may be a question, or maybe the applicant or you, Tim, could answer the question. So this is part of a larger major development order, and the stormwater clearly is being handled.
Yeah, they have
On
a
an adjacent
they have a
parcel.
master system. They have a
Okay.
master stormwater system.
Okay, and this project hasn't altered that? In other words, the,
Well, it's based on the master plan. The master system is based on what's in the master plan. So in this area, there's 3 more buildings, right? 3 more buildings in this phase.
yeah,
So,
So there's
3 total,
Yeah.
3 total. So the master stormwater system is based on those three buildings.
yeah, so I mean, maybe I'll put my question a different way. So there were some changes that caused maybe I misunderstood. Were there some changes to the overall layout of the
No,
larger
just
project?
the
Not.
use.
Okay,
All
Okay,
they
so-
changed was the use.
okay, all right, so that makes sense. And obviously the
Because what they've been in there doing, you know, obviously you all have seen where they took all the trees down and everything.
yeah, and demarc the site.
They're doing the wetland impacts. They're filling the wetlands because their permits, their core and DEP permits were gonna expire this year.
Yeah,
So they're in there doing that, and as a continuation of that, or as a part of that, they're building the stormwater system. So on either side of the entrance off of 98 for the apartment, there'll be stormwater ponds on
Yeah.
either side.
okay,
So they're building that now, but it's a master stormwater system for the whole 158 acre site.
yeah, okay, all right. Good, so in other words, this is a discrete standalone approval, and we're not approving something that's part of something that's changing.
Not at the moment, no.
Awesome, okay, that makes me nervous what you just said,
Well, I mean, there's more buildings to come. The stormwater system's not gonna change at all.
okay,
It's a master system, it's not gonna change, unless they change something in the PUD, it's not gonna change.
all right, okay.
But what I meant by that, there's 2 more buildings coming in this phase.
Yes, yeah, but is the best you understand it, they're also not going to do anything to alter the requirements for the
Correct.
stormwater
That-
pond and the
They're gonna
landscape.
That's right,
remediation,
yes,
et cetera.
that's
Okay,
right.
good, Yeah,
Is this phase in that same parcel that is adjacent to the highway? Or,
Yes, this phase goes from, this parcel goes from the entrance to the apartments to West Hewitt.
okay,
On both sides of that, the entrance road off of West Hewitt. So, one of the buildings or 2 of the buildings go north of that road? 1, yeah, so there'll be this is on the south side of Dune Lakes, is that the name of it? Dune Lakes Boulevard?
yeah,
So this one and another one will be on the south side of that, and there'll be a building on the north side.
okay.
yeah.
But this
And-
parcel runs from the entrance to the apartments to West Hewitt.
Okay, and then, what I believe I'm seeing, so I'm looking at I happen to be looking at sheet LP1, the landscape plan, and, the existing, turn lane onto West Hewitt is remaining as is, and then it looks like there's maybe a right-in only, and entrance only into to the shared driveway between these two parcels?
These guys are gonna have to answer that, because Dewberry reviewed that part of it, so I'm not real familiar with that part of the plan.
Okay.
But just so you know, the assisted living behind Walmart is also part of this phase 2 of the PUD. And they
Okay.
amended that over the summer as well. The parking and the use they amended. Has nothing to do with this, but it's all part of phase 2.
Okay.
Is this a multi-tenant building?
No, this single tenant.
Single tenant. So, I know we're not looking at signage right now, and I can't wait until we are looking at signage when we look at the, development project itself. But it looks like there are 4, placeholders for signage. Is that what I'm seeing, those gray rectangular?
Yeah, that would be selected areas for signage, and then we also, we raise the parapets to give it some visual interest and movement also. But those are some areas where we could put signage, but we could bring that back to you, once we finalize that.
So we're not approving those signage locations right now, we're just, they'll be
Will they have
submitted
a
with the
master sign
signage
plan?
package?
They do not have one currently, no.
Okay.
But, and I didn't really look at that, I was just reviewing the project, but they could only have 3, not 4. Because you're on 3 roads, you're on 98, you're on West Hewitt, and you're on Dune Lakes. So you could have 3, but you couldn't have that 4th sign without a deviation to the code.
Would, Tim, in your opinion, or I guess anyone who's knowledgeable on the intricacies of master signage plans, given the scale of the development, a master signage plan would probably not be a bad idea.
No, I think it'd be a
overall.
great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
That way, they don't have to come back to this board every time they want to
Okay.
put up
Yeah.
a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be like one.
And it also
person
ensures
would
that
be
there'll
here,
be
but it'll next
more
to-
consistency between the signs. One of the challenges we've had is anytime there's a franchise-type tenant, not having a master sign plan tends to result in the colors and scale and style of the signage being a bit of a hair-pulling exercise every
Yeah.
time they show up, so,
Yep.
Mishmash.
yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things, I just wanna, I know we're not approving signage right now, but the front facade, the facade that faces the 98 is, that's the south elevation? So, that looks like it's sort of built for 2 separate signage locations, which I don't think,
No, you'd
have to be a
you'd have
deviation.
one.
And, it's also light lit for that, in these pictures. And I can just see from the way this is structured, you see what you know how we deal with this when there's a facade of a building that is awkward for signage, that fits the code, and then we end up in an awkward position. So that concerns me a little bit.
So Tim, technically, you would be allowed on this project, 1 on the south, 1 on the north, and 1 on the west.
Correct.
And they've got 2 on the south, 1 on the east, and 1 on the west, and none on the north.
That's correct.
Yeah, and as.
So,
and they
I'm just
couldn't-
saying that just,
Right, they couldn't have
somebody
one
doesn't get
without-
upset when they come back.
Without a deviation, they could not have one on
Correct.
the east side, because that's just a drive-off, it's not a
Correct.
road. They could not have one there, and they could only have one on the south facing 98 without a deviation, so that's right, yes.
These are options for signage, not
Right.
Written in stone.
Right.
just options.
Yeah.
Well, we just want to know, you guys to know.
I think all we were trying to do is draw a point of clarification,
Right.
so you don't start building this, come to us late, and all of a sudden you've got a big hickey on the side of your building that has no utility.
Right.
And lights that light nothing and all that.
I like that word, hickey.
Yeah, we would modify that, take one of
That's
the, one of the
technical.
signage
I didn't like come up with a funny
locations
word.
down. Modify it.
Okay.
Owen Gibson, and I'm with DAG Architects.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments for the applicant?
All right, I believe we talked, in case we're getting close to a motion, we talked about a contingency for screening, fully screening any rooftop equipment.
Right.
And there was
So-
one other, Kelvin's.
Oh, I think that is yes, is well, I guess we want to make it a requirement, we could. The lighting color should be between 3 and 5,000 kelvins.
Sure.
Yep.
Kelvins, yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I am recusing from.
Yes, okay, and we'll note that in the report of the vote. So, I guess we are ready for a motion if anybody cares to make one.
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions that the kelvins be, for the lighting be between 3 and 5,000, and that the rooftop equipment, any rooftop equipment be completely screened from view.
I second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, and for the record, we note that Kevin has recused himself.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
All right,
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was there anybody in the audience, there's a lot of architects out there, so is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on this project? Okay.
Good.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay.
Oh, they were all from St. Joe?
I didn't even recognize Charlie, hasn't seen him
That
in
was
years.
Charlie, yeah,
Claire,
Claire's, yeah.
I assumed he had
I hadn't seen
really
him in
gotten
years
out of
either.
it. He's personally do stuff for me and not run it through the fire.
Okay, that brings us to the Shops at Inlet Master Signage Plan.
Yes, thank you. This is a scenic corridor sign application submitted by Boardwalk Designs requesting approval of a master signage plan on 1.46 acres with the future land use of neighborhood infill and an inlet beach neighborhood plan designation of neighborhood commercial for our master signage plan. Property is located at 13665 US Highway 98 East, and it is in compliance with the master signage plan requirements, and they're ready to start putting signs up.
Awesome. Okay. Do we have anybody who wishes to make a presentation? No? Oh, yes, okay.
I'm Sandy Buffoon with Boardwalk Designs, representing the Inlet Beach Commons and F&F Enterprises. You're familiar with where it is located, right at the 30A east end, 30 Avenue, the crossings. This is right east of the crossings. As Tim said, the signage is all in compliance, size, materials. They are allowing on the west and east end, because they face west and east and they're not facing 98, they are allowing channel letters. So he's going to allow that, but otherwise all of the other signs will be non-illuminated, dimensional, carved, you know.
Ms. Buffoon, before we get started,
Yes.
This is just my personal sentiment. I want to say thank you for continuing to work your business after the hurricane.
Oh, thank you very much.
By myself being in real estate, I've had a lot of people leaving, telling me they're leaving, and the only people that are really coming have chainsaws.
Yes.
So, thank you for staying.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been very difficult when you try and put a master sign plan together without internet. These poor girls. I mean, I would call just like crazy, you gotta help me with this. But it worked out fine, and we're taking one day at a time, but yeah.
Good.
It's doing good.
Well, it looks like you've done a nice job presenting.
Thank you, yes.
I do have a
All
question.
very standard, nothing unusual, outstanding, very much.
I
all-
thought I heard you say that you've got signage on the east and west side,
Uh-huh.
and how do you do that? Because there's not a road there, is there, on the east side?
East of the west end of 38.
Well,
So it's like
Well, it
that.
depends on where the tenants are. Each tenant unit can have a sign,
Okay,
regardless of how
Okay,
it's
okay.
A
oriented.
single tenant building couldn't have
Okay,
signs like that.
okay.
Right.
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
I'm with you,
Single
okay.
tenant, that's correct.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, that this is somewhat unusual. Instead of doing a monument sign for their main identification, they're doing a building sign.
Right.
So
Not illuminated.
Don't see that every day.
What
so
is,
it's a
well,
little
what it,
different.
What does it look?
is it that one down low
It says shops at Inlet.
in the front and the middle?
Yeah, on the wall.
Yeah, it's on the wall, anodized aluminum, dark bronze.
Am
Yeah.
I crazy about that? Like, oh, wait a minute, what is this?
You're looking at the wrong one. So,
Is there
This is a
one,
different side. Wait,
so
It
there's
says
one
ma-
facing the parking lot?
It says
and there's
main
one-
identification sign on the graphic. Building sign, main
Building facade?
identification.
Yeah, but Lee's got a good, Lee's got a point here.
This
So
is what she
on
wants.
the sheet that has cafe
Is it this
aroma,
one?
coffee, donuts, and deli?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Nope.
Not the-
Well,
It's
it's
on
actually
that
on that
one
one
too.
as well, so
Yeah, 'cause
hold that
it's
one up,
right
Lourdes,
here.
there's one
It's
right
right
there
here.
in the middle. Is that a
Okay.
monument?
Right here.
No, that, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, what was your question?
The
Okay,
monument
yeah.
is here?
Is illuminated, is that the question?
Oh, no, here's the,
No.
okay, so, I'll just, if my computer cooperates, so this rendering, which is showing the tenant signs facing
The south,
south,
that's on 98.
yes, but in the middle of the building, there's something that says shops at
Shops.
Inlet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh,
realize
yeah.
that, that's the north, that's the north side of the building. That's
Oh,
on the parking
okay.
lot side.
Oh, but it does have a signage though. It does have this.
Yeah, but
Low
that is
sign.
all, that's just,
Oh, yeah, okay, that's right, it's north.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
but it's not part of he's not gonna do that.
Okay, it's not
This
part
was
of the
just
signage. That,
part
that's
of their
just-
conceptual
Yeah.
thing of, did he want a parking lot sign, you know?
Right, but he's not
Okay.
gonna
But he's
have
not.
that, so we X that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so on the,
Yeah,
on
I didn't
the
think about that.
Highway 98 facing south side of the building.
That's the south side, yeah.
There is no monument sign. It is the sign on the building that faces
That's right,
east.
yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this one is the one that has the sign on the wall.
Yes, there are four
Right here.
tenants on the
They're
side.
right here.
Yes, that's it. That's the main identification building
Are
sign,
these the
yes.
actual tenants?
I'm sorry?
Are these the
No, they're
actual-
not. Those are
Oh,
examples,
okay.
yes.
Actually, let me ask,
Mhm.
so, and forgive me, I drive by the building, but I've lost track of, in my mind, where the round end is. Is this the east facing or south facing?
That's south facing.
That's south facing,
That's
okay.
the
so-
98 south.
So
Yeah.
Shops at Inlet is mounted to the building with, bracket, barn style lights.
Stud mounted, they're all stud mounted, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah,
All right.
bronze, stud mounted,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
That's that wall that's the shaker
It's got the
kind of,
shape,
yeah.
okay.
And it's right there at the round area.
And this is the one that faces 98.
That faces 98,
Okay.
yes. And they are carved, yeah, they're not illuminated,
Okay.
thank you.
yeah.
Okay, so let me.
Yeah, I didn't
do
either.
something
I
else.
didn't pay attention, you know.
Find an example of something here.
Yeah,
Um,
at that.
So, here's a question, and this is a little bit beyond your purview, but do you happen to know, like on the one that shows the main identification sign,
Uh-huh.
this is one example, there are others, on other sides of the building. There are 4 bays there in the middle,
Yes.
small bays.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if those bays can be combined, combined such that maybe one tenant might take 2 or 3 or whatever?
Yeah, the build-out could be, yes.
So, here, we've had this issue before. I think the intent of the code, even though once you get a master signage plan approved, you can follow that master signage plan. If there were a tenant that took 2 of those bays, I would not want to see 2 signs for that tenant.
Yeah, because there's really not space for it, you know.
Well, but
What
to
he's
me,
saying over the doors.
architecturally, it looks like it's almost there are architectural elements that require that.
Yeah,
What you'd normally see is the ability to center the sign over the 2 bays.
yeah.
But
yeah,
this
but-
looks like there are architectural elements and lighting that make that difficult or impossible
Yeah.
unless you want to reconstruct every time you have a tenant change.
Yeah, and
So-
I know that might not be his wish. It might be that
Well, it's on.
he's going to have just 4 and that's it, you know. So I really probably I'm speaking really where I shouldn't be, but yeah.
And we've talked about
really
how to
don't know.
address this before, Tim, because we've got a
Yeah,
couple of other,
I think
Well,
I
is
added
there-
some language. to that draft code about that.
Is that in place yet, and will it, I guess,
No,
because,
it's not in place yet. It's going in,
so that's,
Are
You know,
the
because-
vertical items
And that
posts in
has
front
always
of
been a
them- in
problem, you know,
front of them?
because the architects designed the building,
right,
and then you come back as a sign person and you're
I
like,
know it.
okay, now, where, you got two people, here, you got one spot for a tenant, one lot, where are you gonna get these signs?
That's why we want,
You and
Um,
me are speaking the same language.
we
Yeah.
are, because of just from different ends of the process,
Yeah.
because, our change, amendments that are going through the approval process to the code, and correct me if I get off track, Tim, if I'm remembering correctly, because we've been amending this code for about 2 years, it feels like, long time. We're gonna start requiring that the signage plan be approved simultaneously with the project
yes,
plan.
that's the way the current language reads.
Because I think that the signage should be worked on in coordination with the architectural design
Yes,
of the building.
exactly, yes.
Because this is one particular issue, this multi-bay tenant issue.
Yeah,
And we've also had other issues, like
Yeah.
when a facade over a bay is an awkward shape for the signage size limitation.
mm-hmm,
So some of that could be addressed if the signage plan were coordinated with the project.
that's right.
Right,
yeah,
like,
because-
like here, in this thing where you have 4 bays, and if
Yep.
these two were to do one, where do you put the sign?
Right. Yeah.
You can put it in the middle, but the thing is, if this, all, these verticals, there would be another horizontal at this
Mhm.
level, and then this would be more of a horizontal
Yeah,
area, then you could move the sign to center it wherever you need to. No matter if they took three bays and 1 bay. or-
right, right.
But
Right.
it just looks
But-
like there's an
but those are
architectural
posts.
framing that,
Right, but what I'm thinking is that these might be, are they posts in front of the building? I don't have a plan.
No, it's a trim piece, right?
If it's a trim piece, then you can definitely change it.
but but if we don't require that.
No, but
Exactly,
and-
you can't,
And the other thing is, there's a light over each.
that's right.
So you've got a light fixture location.
Right,
Right.
but
This
it's, no,
is-
but.
This is not gonna end well.
It
I can
is
just
why.
tell you.
You
No,
need
but
to
what
do
I'm,
it.
what I'm saying is that, what you're saying is that if we do approve this, the signage with the building, then we can require them to change and fix that, because what you could do is, you could say, okay, you know, if it's, you could have more lights, but you would, depending on where the signage is gonna be, that's the light that you use, and you shut off the other 2 lights, so we can require, you know, if it's 3 tenants and 1, or two tenants
And the
with
problem,
1.
at the moment, the challenge is that we've already approved this project and it's built.
Right.
Right, and that's
So-
what you're,
You need to do it with the architect, so the architect can make
Exactly.
that change at that point,
Exactly.
before
Keep
it
it
goes
away
any
from a
further.
deviation proceeding, would you not have to assume that if somebody came in and got 2 bays, they still get 1 sign, and it's still located right in one of those two places?
And
And
nobody's
what-
gonna like that.
and what
I
would-
don't even like
I think
that.
that's the
But-
draft language.
yeah, I don't like that
I put
either.
in there that.
But
You
I
understand
think
what I'm saying?
But
it's
yeah,
better,
but
but
right
it's
now you
better
have to do
than 2 signs that say the same thing next
Of
to it.
Correct.
course, yeah, no, I understand.
It looks like on the like the
I think we're
example
all
on the
agreed
real
to
estate,
this, how to do it.
it looks as if we approve this master signage plan the way it is, you almost say, okay, it's 2 bays, 1 real estate company, but the master sign plan says you can put 2 signs up.
Right, that's what we're,
That's the way it looks.
and that, we've seen that work that way on the ground.
Yeah,
This-
people have
this
actually
actually
argued that.
developer.
Came and argued.
This actual developer. So it's an issue, and it's gonna happen again on this if we don't address it now, is what I'm saying. And I hate to say, well, you know, put the requirement in that it's 1 sign per tenant, but I don't want double signs either.
Right, right.
I mean, we've even got one down there that's 3, they have 3 signs, 1 on the side and 2 on the front, and say the exact, I mean, that one tenant has 3
Is
signs.
that the crossing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The Destin Seafood, or Destin Ice Seafood, or.
Well,
Well, one, I don't know if it's the best option, but one option you could do is make a condition of if they're gonna combine bays, they have to come back to this board to get that approved. If they do it as it's shown, then staff can approve it.
Yeah.
But if they're gonna change, then they have to come back.
Is it already leased up?
Yes,
But
Yes.
So they're ready
the
to
thing
put
about it
signs.
is, what is good is the fact that those are not posts in front of the building, you know, that you can't move.
Yeah.
But if it's just trim can be changed.
yeah.
so we can adapt.
Well,
I
and
know-
that's the thing, when they come back with their individual tenant sign plan, you know, sign application, then that's when you're going to,
But that's handled at a staff level if it's a signage plan, master signage plan.
Oh, that's
We don't-
true,
We don't
yeah.
see those.
But still, if you make
Yeah.
that condition that you're gonna do something
Yeah.
other than what's shown on this plan, you
Then
have
it's
to come
gotta
back
be.
to this board.
But
Yeah.
Tim, the thing is, other than what's shown on that plan,
The plan.
is the fact that they can't, if it's two tenants, then they can't do two signs.
Yeah, on the
Two-
plan,
two
it looked
bays.
that way.
One.
Yeah.
2 bays and 1 tenant.
Yeah,
Or 3, you can even
right,
have 3.
you have three, and you have,
Or you could.
but
Yeah,
one
three
sign
signs.
only per
Yeah,
tenant,
so
one sign
In terms
only
of
per
tonight,
tenant.
do we approve?
You can make that condition, that if you're gonna
Right.
have multiple bays, you still only have one sign.
Yeah.
Regardless of
And
what
if
that
anybody had
shows.
enough bays to justify having multiple signs facing multiple directions, that would be a deviation and have to come back.
But you already, if it's already leased up,
The simple tent would be the
Then
tent,
you
the tenant
already
gets
know.
one
yeah,
sign.
if you're
You
already
already
leased
know.
up, you already know
If they want to
where,
deviate from that, they gotta-
How many?
where the sign should be.
Right.
Yeah, as they are right now.
But you're gonna
Yeah.
have turnover
You,
over
you got
time.
it, yeah, but in the future, yeah, 3, 4, 5 years ago from now, yeah, you're gonna have a change.
But
But
currently
right
you
now,
have
this is
one
the way it
per
is.
spot
Yes, this is,
currently.
exactly, this is what it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
they've already turned all these signs in.
Yeah.
As soon as this gets approved,
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
every one of these is full.
Okay.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
This
so
is why I
am
brought
I
it up
hearing
on
you
the
say,
original
right now,
tonight,
if we
because
approve this tonight, there are no conflicts
There are no conflicts
Today,
today?
exactly.
but
Okay.
those tenants are going,
Okay, that answers my
That's
question,
how
but I
it's-
wanted to see if it may be better on you
Well-
if we we table this and continue it next meeting for
I
you to
don't
get that
think-
information, but you've already got it.
she's
Yeah.
got it, yep.
Yeah,
So it's a tenant turnover issue in the
That's right.
future, potentially.
Yeah.
And it's very likely to happen, honestly. I mean,
but it's gonna be years down the road, because, I mean, we do all of the signs right there, and I don't think we've made any changes here recently in the last two years on anything.
Yeah,
In the
30
crossings or 30 Avenue,
crossings, yeah.
they pretty much stayed, so you got some time. But your point about the architect,
It's
that's
an
really
issue.
what has to happen.
it
Yeah.
definitely is an issue, 'cause
Yeah, because we try so hard to make it look aesthetically right, not only to meet the code, but to look good with the architecture. And we know you guys, we know
Yes.
Walton, I mean, this is where we are, and that makes it very difficult sometimes. You just kind of want to go, oh dear, why did the architect, he didn't
Consider
allow,
that.
he didn't consider that, yeah.
And signage is such an important
Oh,
part
it
of
is.
the architecture
That's
of a
right.
building.
That's right.
So it needs to be taken
It
into
influences
account
the
when
look of
it's
the building in
designed.
the end,
It really
because
does.
they're deep.
Right.
Victor Hugo made a comment about this many years ago.
Yeah.
Yep. He issued somewhat of a warning to architects that when we started writing on buildings, we were gonna have problems.
Writing on buildings,
Yep.
I love it. It is, it's, yeah. I mean, you can have a gorgeous building architecturally
right.
and absolutely ruin it with signage.
That's right.
No signs.
Absolutely
Exactly.
ruin it. You can
Not
also
with one
take a
of
not so
mine.
great, no, right,
Not
but you
with
can,
one of
but you
mine.
can also take, you can also take a not so great looking building
And
and
make it
make it
look
look a
good.
little better with your
You better
signage.
believe it, yeah.
Lourdes,
mean,
what do you think about that? Sorry.
That's
Caught her
not-
off guard.
It doesn't happen.
Lourdes and I
often,
both started zoning out at one, yeah.
But, yeah.
I'll make one comment. This is totally in jest. I love the I don't know, call it dichotomy, tension between the old-fashioned shoppies with the modern at.
Yes.
That's really,
Yeah, that was cool.
that's subtle. 1 foot in each century.
That's great.
It's a good looking building. Yeah.
It's timeless.
Yes. Yeah.
So we could recommend approval contingent on if there's a change down the road that they would have to come back to the board for approval.
Very good.
So, I mean, and to capture
One
that,
sign per tenant.
yeah, I think what we're
Right.
capturing is that, yeah, one sign
per
per
tenant.
tenant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If at any time a tenant were to occupy multiple bays, they would only have one sign
Mhm.
unless they came back, in which case they could make a case to have two, but it would be a deviation.
Okay.
And now, normally on a corner, a tenant, if they're on the corner, they can have two, right?
Yeah, they can have one on each corner.
I don't, if it's like that everywhere else, I don't have an issue with that. It's the side by side
So one
duplicate.
No,
tenant
Right.
Yeah.
per
Right.
elevation.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
One tenant,
One
sign.
sign per
a
elevation.
single tenant may only have one sign per elevation.
Yes.
That's gonna be written
Exactly.
into the master sign plan.
Yeah, unless they're on a corner.
Well, that would be a
No,
second
that's what he's
elevation.
saying.
Yeah.
True, but,
That's right.
but typically you can't have more than those two
You
elevations.
can't have three. If
I
they
know,
have
like-
three-
like that-
If they're
that
on
other
two
one you're
corners,
saying.
you don't want to have three. So,
That's right, yeah.
so it's
Yeah,
one on
I mean,
each.
you're right, it's a different elevation, but it's also the most you can have.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that, because everybody else can have that too.
Yeah, so let me just get
But-
clear, tonight, what we're approving tonight is a master sign plan.
Correct.
So we need to include the language that will be in the master sign plan
Yeah, it's
as
part of
part
the
of our
packet.
condition.
The narrative is in your packet.
Yes, but I think does the narrative already say what we just said?
No, not.
Oh, well, then
not
we-
when
that's
you
what I'm
com-
saying, is that
Not
our
when you
appro-
combine bays, no.
Yeah.
Right,
So-
that's what we
And
went
see,
at.
here's a
Yeah.
good example. Look at the sheet that has the Cafe Aroma Coffee Donuts Deli as the fake example. This is what elevation? East elevation. So in this case, you've got two sign areas, but it even says in the note, if you look at the note above the building, directly above the building in red, if the tenant occupies 2 or more suites, they are still limited to the above size specifications. However, the placement of the channel letters centered on the sign facade area is allowed. So we're starting to get into that.
Yeah.
But
And that's right from
this
regulations, yeah.
facade allows for that centering, because there's no architectural elements that limit it, and there's no lighting that limits it. So that's what I'm telling you, but this even says allowed, so I hope that doesn't mean they can still have two. But we'll address that by saying no more than one sign
Per tenant.
unless they're on a corner, they can have two.
Up to 2.
Per elevation, yeah.
Up to two, yeah, they can have two.
So do we want to, let's, Karen, do you want to try to capture?
I have motion to approve with the condition of one sign per tenant per elevation, even if they occupy multiple bays, unless they are on corner, unless located on.
Yeah, so what we're going to
I
also
would take
capture is.
out the per elevation. The corner thing addresses that.
Okay.
That issue more accurately.
But what she has not yet captured is the,
Centering of the
two.
lights too.
Yeah, and they're not gonna want their lights in a weird spot. I mean,
did we capture the up to 2? What I'm trying to make sure is in case someone occupies the building, they don't get 3
unless
signs.
they're located on
Located on the corner in which they would.
up to two, yeah.
Yep.
Up to 2.
Yeah, and see, that's what he's.
And then the other thing is, I think lighting should be centered over the signage. Lighting should be centered over the signage.
Well, it should be, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what we also add that to that point.
This is not what we said, I'm telling you.
I know, it's gonna be crazy, but,
It's gonna be crazy. That's what
but
they've
it
gotta
can
start.
be done.
They've got, it can be, but they've gotta start handling this
Early on.
What do you think this building's already been wired?
Yeah, the lighting's already installed.
Yeah, but when you do
Center
it,
it.
You
Well,
can't,
right,
you'd have to move it, you'd have to
Right.
reconstruct,
Right.
you'd have to
go
do some
back and
construction.
rework
That's
it.
what
right,
they're
they're
not
gonna
gonna
have to
do it.
rework it and,
I think that's a block building too, isn't it?
you know what? Renovations are done all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And I move lights.
Yeah, that's,
So,
yeah.
Okay, I got another question.
as you're the builder, you don't wanna do it.
That's when it quit.
So, yeah, this is just a time.
Okay, so we have the recommended approval with those considerations.
We have another
All right,
question.
we've gotten that
Okay.
addressed.
Sorry.
Do y'all need to finish what you're talking about?
No.
No.
So, same page, Cafe Aroma, which is a good little name, by the way. It says type individually mounted backlit reverse channel or interior lit channel letters. So that means, does that mean that if you have two tenants there, one of them can have reverse lit and one of them can, right next to it, could have interior lit?
I wouldn't want to have somebody,
Yeah.
Because I personally have a problem with that.
you know, peeking at what
Are
I'm
y'all
doing.
Consistency.
design professionals, anyone, Bueller?
What, sorry.
The way this is set up on the sides of the building where they can have lit letters,
Right.
it says currently individually mounted backlit reverse channel or interior lit channel letters. So you could technically, based on this wording, have two tenants side by side and one of them could have a reverse channel and one of them
I
could
think
have
it should all be
interior.
the same.
I think
Yeah,
it should be the
okay.
same.
And they should match whatever they have in the front, on the
Okay.
side.
Well, that's the next point, because, what's your first name, ma'am, again?
Sandy.
Sandy?
Sandy.
Sandy, you mentioned earlier that it's required that they're non-lit on the front. but the sides can be lit.
Mhm.
I even kind of struggle with that a little bit. Is that because of a visibility?
Yes, most,
issue?
they're not coming, when you're coming, driving
Yeah.
east,
Mm-hmm.
you can't, you'll never see those. They face east. Like, let's say Cafe Aroma, you know.
You can't see it as you
cannot see
approach
it
the
from-
building?
From the highway, no.
Really?
No, you'd have to be coming east, driving west, in order to see his signage. So that's
But is
where.
the lighting gonna help that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it'll make it, as you pass by, I mean, yes, that's going to catch your eye if you're looking.
Why wouldn't you do the same on both? I mean, might as well lit both.
You know,
Front and
well,
the back
let me
and the
throw this
side.
out there. The architecture of the building is, it would appear that the designer's intent was that this is one building, but it almost looks like multiple buildings. So I can kind of see having one type of signage facing south and a different type of signage facing east and west. But I don't think it should ever, it needs to be
It's gotta be
defined as to what
consistent.
type of sign is on which elevation, and it's not optional, where a
Yeah.
tenant on the south could decide to do
No, and that's
Reverse
not.
lit.
reverse lit
And that's
letters.
not, no, and
Yeah.
that's not the case.
Okay,
Everyone on the south has to have a carved, non-illuminated sign. That's those 4 bays.
They're lit from above.
They're lit
yeah.
from, with
So, okay, yeah,
goosenecks.
so the way that this is, the notes say, Suite 7, east elevation, tenant building signs, facade mount, yes, quantity 1 set, type
Yeah.
individually mounted reverse
Here's my
channel,
problem.
or interior channel
That's my-
letter. See, that's what we don't want the or. In other words,
Yeah,
It's
you need
one
to
or
pick-
the other.
yeah, exactly.
And
So
I
it
would
needs to
suggest
be,
backlit if I have any.
I
Backlit
would
reverse
probably
channel?
say internally lit, you know.
See, I prefer the backlit. I just think it looks
Yeah.
a whole lot
Well,
higher class.
the bit, what do you think the backlit on those? Yeah, the wall, he's got, on those 2 ends, on the west and the east end, which at night, if they're not lit, would not be seen. And the one tenant that is going in is the urgent care. You want that to be seen, because that's an urgent care facility. So he's on the east end, okay? So, if you're at night, that's got to be visible, and the only way for him to be able to be seen and it to be really to pop would be for it to be illuminated, whether it's reverse channel or,
And what I think.
And
Or
what about
internal.
the shops that didn't lit? They're not gonna be lit, the ones that are on the wall?
no,
Which one?
no, that's just the main identification sign. No, that's
But
not.
it is lit. It's lit with light fixtures.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
shine
it's got
down.
gooseneck.
There
Okay,
are
it's
none
got
of those
goosenecks,
goosenecks
okay.
on the east
Yeah.
and west
Yeah.
end.
Right,
So,
But this is
but
gonna be the backlit.
Yeah.
But here's my point. I think it needs to be either backlit reverse channel
yeah,
or interior lit
Okay,
channel.
I agree.
Not one
Okay,
or the other.
okay,
And I
okay.
think that ought to be consistent on the east and the west end.
Yeah.
It's one,
Yeah.
not or.
Yeah,
Because
because it's only the east
You
and the
can
west
have a
end that
mixture.
can have lighted.
You could have
Nobody
a
else
mixture.
can.
I don't want that.
Well, that's why, then you don't have both in the same building.
Yeah, let me ask a quick question, because this is gonna make a difference, maybe how we handle this. Are there signs in production now that need to be, okay. I'm gonna suggest that, once we finish the discussion, because I actually have now one question now that we're digging into this. But would it be a problem if this were continued to the January meeting? And the reason I say that is that if we have this many changes, I hate for you to go, it gets approved, and then your client decides he doesn't like one of the things that we chose, and it's gotta come back anyway.
Okay, well,
They're gonna have to reapply if that's.
okay, yeah. Okay, the signs that are on the south, okay, those are not lighted,
Well, their face lit.
but they're
Well,
facing the
goose-
south, so that is
gooseneck
no
light.
problem. It's only gooseneck light.
Yeah, so what, I call that face.
So
lit.
there's no problem, there should be no question in your mind with that. Where's my, okay.
It's the east and west end of the building that are.
It's the east and the west end of the building that you don't, those are the only 2, the east and the west end, that sit perpendicular
Yep.
Yep.
to Highway 98,
And
Yeah.
there's 2 bays on each.
and they're
Right.
exactly,
Big
that
And
need,
Our input is that both ends of the building, all of the signage on that
they can
should
be consistent.
match. Yeah,
Exactly,
not
and I
different
agree.
types of lighting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
I
So,
would- I would suggest and hope it's reverse channel, not interior lit
Yeah.
channel.
okay, well, if,
I just really like the way that looks, and I think
Yeah,
it.
and it's consistent with the other buildings in the vicinity.
yeah, that's what
Yes,
30 Avenue is, 38 Avenue is reverse channel.
okay.
Okay. Well,
See-
it's the,
Sorry.
let me explain. He has got reclaimed wood, dark reclaimed wood,
Yeah,
where these channel letters are going.
okay.
He's made it difficult to even see the signage because he's made it so dark. So is,
Make a statement, if you require reverse channel letters, as in 38,
30 Avenue,
on a dark wood background, the letters could be white, blue, or yellow, whatever during the day, but at night, they're gonna be black. And you just got just a halo to recognize that. And that's not gonna be beneficial to anybody.
Well,
But
then,
it already
that's
says
gonna-
it's allowed here, so,
To the urgent care.
um,
So if they're internally lit, like the internally lit channel letter, and you make them consistent, that all of them have to be that way.
they're all white.
They're all white.
Well, that was
All
the
with
next thing I
white
was gonna say. The
faces.
next
would look
line
great.
down says color choice of client with final approval from landlord. I was gonna say, if they're
Yeah.
internal,
Black and white.
interior lit channel letters, they all need to be the same color.
Exactly, white.
Correct.
I agree.
Okay, yeah.
With the exception of the cross in the urgent care, which is red.
Right.
Yeah, then that would,
And that is, once again, think of what that facility is providing for the community there.
yeah.
You want it to be visible, you want people
Yeah,
to be
and
able
look,
to.
I mean, I don't love it that they won't be the same style as the ones on the front of the building, but I think I can get over that.
Yeah.
But what I can't get over is the 4 signs on the ends not being consistent with one
Right.
No,
another.
they will be.
Just
So-
make
so-
them internally lit and make it, that's
Yeah,
the, that's
and
the
Yeah,
option.
all you need to do is scratch the backlit reverse
Exactly.
channel as an
Correct.
option.
Correct.
Exactly.
and then
And
under
we'll put
color,
in the
they all need
white
to be.
faces, they all have to
Yeah.
have white faces.
And yeah, cause right now it says, choice of
Yes.
client with final approval from landlord for the
Yep.
color,
Yes.
so.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I don't know if we wanna take, do we have a hard copy of this that we can mark? I just wanna make sure we don't have an excessively complicated motion, or we don't have a
David.
misunderstanding. Yeah, oh, okay.
Oh, he gave you the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay.
You seemed eager to do that.
Can we get your,
Kevin?
I am. Can we get your name for the record, sir?
Joe Buffon, Boardwalk Design.
Okay, Lee, here we go. So there's, we should
In
have.
fact, is it,
I think our motion can be simple.
Okay.
oh,
I think.
okay. So he's only gonna be.
Cafe's toward the back.
Okay, so you got,
Huh?
I'm getting hungry.
wait a minute, you may wanna read. So that's actually, this one is not a problem, because this one is,
That's the front.
that's the front, and it's very specific that it is it doesn't say face lit, but it's not lit, and therefore there's lights above.
This is,
so that's face lit.
urgent care.
So,
Yeah, he's going to have
these guys are ones,
a corner to go in, so you want to hear.
Should be west. Wait, this is north,
yeah, so
so
we
I
care
don't
about.
think we're concerned about the north,
The north is gonna have a gooseneck thing.
cause it's the same as the south.
It's same as south, okay. All right.
It's the west, and I've got 2 wests. You got an east.
There we go. Well, but
That's
what
what-
you got,
There's
you
a
have
road and a parking lot on that
I
side.
mean east.
tenant south.
For some reason, there's some repeats, or maybe it's just showing different options, or 2 pages,
All
there's
of
2
this-
pages.
Yeah, so
So we're
all
saying
of
Cafe
this
Road
south.
can have a sign?
Okay, more north. There's another east.
East.
Okay.
That's probably it.
Okay, yeah, so
Okay,
Cafe
so
Road
you got the
can
same
have
exact
one on that.
situation.
Yeah, see, here we
west
go.
end.
This is
They can
just,
have
this is why I was doing this. So here's the south.
Exactly.
Facelit,
Yeah,
facelit, facelit,
yeah.
facelit, facelit, internal.
Yeah, they don't want
Oh,
one.
why?
Yeah, they just want.
Because it's the
But-
urgent care, that's
Oh,
what I've
that's
been
the urgent
belaboring.
care.
Yes.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah, we'll see on the,
So this
yeah,
tenant,
on
I
the
think-
east end.
You see
it's
where I'm
gonna
going?
look weird in my opinion.
The
I mean,
fact that it's got the red
It,
and the.
again, again, this,
No, just
yeah.
that it's lit.
Yeah, in other words,
Okay.
this sign, these are these are unlit letters, unlit letters,
Urgent
unlit
care is
letters,
the
unlit
only
letters,
one
unlit
that
letters.
is-
There's a light, there's a building light, building light, building light, building light, building light.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden you've got a channel lit channel letters, sign,
Here-
it's a
And they're
totally
doing it
different
on
look.
purpose,
Right.
though, because
Yeah.
this is also gonna be further from.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, the
You were
character,
getting
the
it.
character of this building is, it looks like it's a bunch of different buildings that
Okay.
are all kind of squished together.
Okay,
I don't think
okay,
it's gonna look that bad.
Yeah.
okay.
And it's gonna call
Exact,
attention to that
okay.
building if that's what it's meant,
Yeah, it,
Right.
yeah, it's that,
Gotcha.
you know, for the urgent care. But
It may not be an urgent care forever, but
yeah.
I ain't gonna get
Well,
all,
then we can approve a
put us in a
deviation.
position where
We could
people can't
advertise
see
it.
the urgent
Yeah.
care.
And this is where I was going is I would be more
You're gonna need the
comfortable that we
urgent care
continue
now.
this and that they come back next
Okay, let
month
me,
with a deviation request, with a master signage plan that does not allow internal lit facing south, and then come in with a deviation request for Emerald Coast Urgent Care, they get it. If they move out, the next tenant doesn't have it.
Well, and
Yes,
we also
I
need
think we
to
should do
add
that.
Another provision, we were just talking.
Yeah.
The urgent care, they have a bay facing 98 and they have
Oh,
a
so they got
bay
both.
facing east, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
okay,
They want a sign on each elevation,
so they've got this
but
one
there's no road on
and
these,
this one.
yeah.
so they can't have it.
Where I'm going
If
is,
they put it in the master sign plan, you all approve it, then they can have a sign.
Well, that was the first question I asked.
yeah,
Okay.
but where we're going is that I don't disagree with the suggestion that the Emerald Coast Urgent Care, because of its nature, we would be willing to
Yeah,
allow something different.
Okay.
But in my opinion, the best way to handle that is as a deviation, then it's approved for that tenant and not for any other tenant.
okay.
Well,
If they
you put
move,
that- You put that in the master sign, it's not a deviation. You're
we just build in
adopting-
that Emerald Coast Urgent Care is allowed to have this
Yeah,
sign,
so
no
the
one else
master
is.
sign plan has to specifically identify
Okay.
that.
Okay,
Okay,
You could, well, would you wanna do that? You could just say, an urgent care facility or some kind of, you know what I mean, like
Okay.
Separated.
I don't know about a healthcare facility, cause I wouldn't want a
No.
doctor's office to
Same,
have
yeah.
that,
Right.
but
yeah, maybe, like you said, an urgent care or emergency
Any
care
type of urgent
facility.
care is allowed, but none others.
how about that?
Okay,
okay.
What about business?
yeah,
And,
It's urgent care.
I'm gonna suggest that we make one other contingency is that at the next meeting, if we approve it with all these contingencies, at the next meeting, I would like to see a copy of it so we can read it and make sure that it was
Yeah,
consistent
there's
with.
a lot going on.
That's why I just said, I don't wanna delay
Well, we can
the
look at it
approval
in
of the
the minutes
project.
and say, no.
great. So it would really be just the verbiage of the master that would be something
Right.
you'd like to see?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that way we can, yeah, because,
I just wanna make sure there's no misunderstanding so we don't drive by in a year and go, whoa,
you're right,
how did
exactly.
that happen?
And you
Yeah.
know, the thing is that your tenants right now, they will be able to put their signage up. you know.
I shuffled it, Kevin.
Yeah.
And then, but for future, that would be added.
Yes,
That's what I'm understanding, right?
right.
Okay, yeah.
Let me ask you a question. If they vote that way, they voted, and we bring it back and there's something they don't like, can they re-vote after they've already approved it?
No,
No, I think that what I'm hearing is
But
they
I'm
want
saying
the
if you
ability to
see it
make
in
sure,
January, and you see stuff you don't like in it.
but we're not,
yeah, but they wanna make sure that the order reflects.
yeah, in other words,
decisions
we've got a
not-
long list of contingencies. As you guys know, I like to push projects forward if there's a reason to push them forward. But I also am a believer that if there's no rush, I would rather another draft or another edit come back in January that we review and approve. And I know that we can only take action on what was advertised, so we can't approve an individual project. We have to approve tonight, the only thing we can approve is a master signage plan, or we can continue the master signage plan. So I'm just trying to navigate.
The problem, I think the challenge of that is you got a bunch of tenants that are ready to go, they want their signs made and up.
Yeah.
So we could be delaying we will be delaying their opening a month.
Yeah.
Are they open?
No, they don't have signs yet. They're waiting on this.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I'm
We're trying
inclined
to
that we
help
approve
Approve it
it,
tonight, but review it.
but I would like to see the document next month to make sure that what was, the final version of it was consistent with what we approved.
And
The
we
master.
can
Yeah.
edit it you know, in next month.
Okay,
If we
so the
need to.
master.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
Is that
pretty
okay?
much what you're seeing here
yeah,
is the majority of these examples that we've used
yeah, they're
are
real.
real tenants.
They're real, yeah.
Yeah, Lovelace Interior is gonna be where Cupcake Shop is,
What's that?
you know,
Just run.
yeah. South Walton Eye Care is there, Cafe Aroma is there, with,
Yeah.
he's not gonna do the north signs. Urgent Care is the main one,
Okay.
you know, and that, I think that would be the only, I think that's the hesitation that you have, and that's not gonna change, that's.
Cool, okay.
If we can move forward with him getting these two signed, right? Because he'll be approving it, yeah.
Yeah,
Into manufacture, then that would be great. And we'll just put those changes in the master.
okay.
And I'll see you next month.
Okay, so what do we got?
Okay, well, someone need, whoever's
Okay,
making
so-
the motion to approve, which I think we all have
We
a
don't
sim-
even know
So we're
what
doing-
it is.
We've started the language already with the one of the conditions.
Is the white face, the white face.
Read us what you.
Why don't we handle each elevation one at a time?
I don't know that we can,
Okay.
because some of it crosses elevations.
Well, but we could,
Let's see what she's got to
Okay.
start.
What you got, Karen?
Following conditions. One sign per tenant, even if they occupy multiple days, unless located on a corner, in which there would be allowed up to two signs. And then lighting should be centered over the sign.
It is.
That, I see that.
Then number two, the east and west facing signs will be required to be internally lit with a white face.
Right.
Number three, didn't quite catch it, but I put urgent care facilities will be allowed two signs, one on the east side and one on question mark.
South.
So,
Well,
And that
See
would be, that would be probably only for,
The
only
urgent-
for
Urgent care
units
facilities.
8 and 9.
well, but the urgent care part of that motion, I don't think it quite gets it.
Yeah, we gotta talk about the lighting, not just the
Because
sign by
we
itself.
already have that any tenant can have one on a corner, can have up to two signs. That's not
an
the
urgent,
issue.
yeah, an urgent
The issue
care
was that
facility
for
may.
that, as long as the tenants are urgent care,
Yeah.
So it's what?
they will be,
Oh, I thought it was.
Yeah, it is. It's on the corner.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's on a corner, but not a street.
They've got a south
It's a
facing
parking
sign
lot.
and an east facing sign.
But the code, when it says on a corner, it means a corner lot. There's a road here.
Not a
there's
corner of a
road
building.
here.
oh, so it only needs, it only is allowed one. So that
See,
makes it easier
This is
though.
why, and the addition,
See,
I
this
think
is an
Karen, you
issue.
did a good, you captured what we said, but what we said
It should say
was
corner
that
lot.
a tenant on a corner can have up to two signs. Well,
That's a
that could be
corner.
interpreted, they could have both signs facing one direction.
So
Because
corner
you're
lot.
talking about the corner
This is a little
building,
harder
not the
to
corner
handle.
lot.
Yes.
Can you say corner lot instead of just corner in that first part of the, motion?
Where you
The
mention
first-
corner,
The first
specified lot.
But they want
As a
a
corner,
sign
they say
on
that
that
it's a
east
symbol.
elevation, that's why.
It just means that you're on the corner of
It's
two
not a corner
streets.
but do they want exactly the same sign
This is why I
that
want
they have on the south, on the east side?
Yeah, that's what you're seeing on that. It's the same sign, both sides.
That's the predominant suite that you
Yes, and see,
see going
the language really needs
westbound.
to talk about
Right.
That's the
facing.
first thing you see. the
If-
back
Two
corner.
streets.
Right, when you're driving from Panama City,
And
that's
we
what
have
it
to-
Yeah, if he doesn't have a sign on that south side, then no one's gonna see that it's an urgent.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
And it can't be like a
The
little
south
street
sign
inside of the development.
It's fine. It's the east sign that's the issue,
yeah.
okay, because
An internal street, in other words, it can't be a travel lane. in a
That would be a
parking lot.
deviation.
But staff interprets it to be an internal street.
But that's what I meant though, it's not like a travel lane.
we're gonna talk about
It's
it.
gotta be
Because you see
street.
the east side is not.
Because some people have them on travel lanes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And they do have that on the west side, it's North Walton Lake Shore Drive.
Yeah,
But there's no road on the east side.
But
It's
Tim-
a drive off.
yep.
They want a sign on the east side and the south side for the urgent care, right?
Yeah,
And you're saying the code doesn't allow the sign on the east side, right?
but if
So
you-
that,
But if they put it in a master sign plan,
Right.
you
It would
guys
be allowed.
approved
It
it,
would be.
it would be allowed.
right, okay.
So for an urgent care,
Exactly,
it can have
exactly.
two signs on the east corner.
That's the only business
Outside of
or
an urgent care facility, they need to.
that
come
would
back to us.
be allowed that type. A shoe store is not gonna be able
Here's
to come in
another
and
question.
put a sign on the south and the east side.
Madam Attorney, I'll ask this question. Could we approve a master signage plan that expires on March 1st, 2019?
And then they would have to come back and
Come back and
get reviewed?
come back and create.
I'm
a
less
master-
worried about what y'all are going to build and what's gonna get installed today, or, now,
Then your
than I am
change.
what will happen down the road if we
Yeah.
don't get the language correct.
Future
Yeah.
changeover.
Right.
I don't know if the code would allow that. I've just, that's.
Okay.
Well, that
Well,
means they'd have to
okay,
re-
wait a minute. Why can't
The
we
signage
amend
the
the
signage plan would
master?
expire.
Because, yeah, I mean, I come back and have amended masters and changed the verbiage,
Yeah, we would,
and we can come back,
In
Well, since
January.
yeah, if
after
we
the first
approve
of the
one that
year and
doesn't
just do an
expire,
amended one.
yeah, if we approve one that doesn't expire, then we're relying on you to come back.
Okay.
Well, I understand you're saying that, but what I'm getting at is that what we want, what I'm trying to get is some assurance that we can make sure that the language in this document for the next round of tenants will generate signage that we like. And we're not saying that the signage that you've presented graphically tonight. is not
No, I
correct.
understand, yeah, I understand.
Well, okay,
And-
so,
There's another little detail is that the architectural rendering shows a building light, a gooseneck light, over the urgent care light. So now you've got a
And
light that's an
it's
internally lit
internally
light with a light on it, and I'm sure you don't
No,
want
and
to do
that's
that.
not happening, yeah.
Yeah, so
Exactly, yeah.
that, you
We
see
need
where I'm
to-
going, is
that
that
needs
what
to
we're
be
approving
corrected.
has got a lot of little details that need to be
Yeah.
So
sorted out.
what is what's happening with
What
that
happened-
south-facing urgent care sign?
They'll probably just delete that
There's-
fixture.
On the south-facing urgent care sign, yeah, there
What
is
will it-
no gooseneck, there was no lighting.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be.
It's drawn in, it's represented in the drawing.
It shows
Oh, it's on the
one.
drawing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just graphically represented, it doesn't have an arrow
Oh,
pointing at
okay.
the same gooseneck light, but
Oh, okay.
you see where I'm going is that,
Well, I'll tell you what happened. Initially, they were all gonna be carved, all with goosenecks.
yes,
That's the way the architect,
it drew everything, yeah, yeah.
but urgent care came in
And said
and
they wanted internally
absolutely
lit.
had a fit.
Yeah, I understood.
And said, hey, we've gotta be seen, and we cannot be seen, on this corner.
You don't need subtlety, you need,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in your face.
Karen.
So that's when John,
Yeah,
the
well, and-
developer, said,
Yeah.
okay, on the two
Yeah.
ends, east and west end, they can have channel letters,
Yeah. To give you an example of how, you were, maybe you witnessed at least today's part of the Taco Bell discussion. That wasn't a master signage plan, and so
Yeah.
we sweated the details, and we actually ended up going out and looking at it and all this type of
Right.
stuff. So, what makes me nervous about what we're kicking around in terms of, we're trying to take a master sign plan that's complex, and we're trying to make several changes tonight.
Right.
And to me, that's a recipe for a problem
A disaster.
down the road. And so if there's some way that we can get this document back,
Okay.
but without delaying your current round of signs, that's what I'm trying to
Can I ask you
accomplish.
a question?
Yeah.
Is there a particular tenant that is, time is of the essence, or is there multiple tenants?
Well, they all are.
They all-
They're
everybody's waiting to get a
moving,
sign?
yeah.
They're all pulling the trigger.
They're all pulling it
Is
at the
it
same time,
possible,
in
Karen,
fact.
for us to come give them a week and have a special meeting just to deal with this? Is that possible?
How long does the meeting have to be advertised?
Every one of them.
I have to have it in the paper 2 weeks.
Yeah, so there's no real way. By the time we get it advertised, we're gonna be at New Year's and we're gonna wait till January anyway, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, one other question, just so that, the urgent care sign, are we saying that we are approving this urgent care sign for this tenant in the east side and the south side? Are we all in that
I
agreement
think
or
we
not?
need to clarify that.
This is getting complicated,
It
so.
is.
And I know
Because
it,
the other signs we pretty much are clear on, right?
yeah.
Mhm.
This one's the only one that is, okay.
So both signs on the south and east side are going to say Emerald Coast.
They look
Urgent
exactly
care.
the same,
Exactly the same.
day and night. They look
With-
exactly the
with-
same.
With the cross,
Which
which is red, right?
is
Right.
not consistent with the way the code is usually applied. Because they're not, the east-facing sign is not
It's not
facing
on a street.
a street.
Oh, yes, exactly,
Yeah.
yes. So
So,
in that regard, yes, you're making a.
yeah, see, and so and yes, we could create
we can have a motion that has one of its 7 or 8 parts, describes in great detail how an urgent care tenant in that location, in that building would,
It's allowed to
et cetera. So,
have a
if there's some,
specific sign.
yeah, if there's some way that this can come back to us in January, I would feel a whole lot more comfortable that we're gonna come up with this master sign plan that works.
Well, let's do it. I mean,
Our problem is not so much what you're saying, it's
Yeah.
what's written.
oh,
Yes.
exactly. No, I understand.
You know, so, I mean.
And I understand that as a sign company, believe me.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would
yeah,
like to
yeah.
have it more, because it only adds a problem for me in the future. Then I'm like,
The tenant, yeah, if you
Okay,
have a
how are
tenant
we
that
gonna
reads
do
this and
this
goes,
and
well, I
make
can
it
do
look
all
good?
these signs, then we're fighting it the whole.
That's
the whole
what,
Exactly,
that's
yeah.
what I'm trying to avoid
And-
for
Okay.
all of these.
well,
And
why
the,
don't we, rather than January,
yeah,
with the holidays and everything, and the fact that we're still a mess
yeah,
in Panama City, if I could get back to you in February, I mean, I will give you my word. I mean, and we can flag it, you can flag it.
yeah,
You call me and I'm there for the February meeting.
okay.
And we will, and I'll present this again and the language will be different.
But that means that all these signs are gonna be delayed in these tenant openings.
No, go
You're talking
ahead
about-
She's
and
saying
we'll
approve it,
amend.
and she'll come back.
Why can't we amend it in February? And I'll amend it with new language.
Madam Attorney,
Yes,
here's a question. What if we approve this contingent on an application for an amendment coming before us at the February meeting? I'm just trying to put one string, I'm trying to
So I
attach a
think
string
he's
to
trying
it so it
to-
has to come back.
Yeah.
Because the owner, frankly, and no offense to y'all, I use you all for all the signage in Rosemary, so I think very highly of you and your company. But the owner could say, well, I'm not using boardwalk signs anymore, I don't have to come back.
Exactly.
I want I want a string attached to the approval so that
no,
it has to come back.
Can
Exactly.
I mean, let me see, I got another quick question.
Okay.
You could make a condition that a revised plan be brought back at the February meeting. That's one of the conditions of approval.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Bringing the revised.
That would tie it
That's
to
perfect.
the building, not to an,
All right,
to
okay.
a.
I'm good with that, so let's hammer this motion
Oh,
out.
what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Which is my.
That, I would think that
Still.
would, that'd be sufficient.
I am too. The conditions on the ground here.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So we still need to hammer out this motion.
I think so. Yeah.
But I think you might have just come up with a solution.
That seems to be the easiest solution is
That's what you
as
asked for in the first place.
one of your conditions of
Yeah,
approval,
I
bring
got
it to revised back in February.
Yep.
Is it just the urgent care that's problematic
Yeah,
as far as?
No, no.
Well,
No,
no,
I mean,
not,
we got lots of little details to work out,
Okay.
and it involves a fair amount of tweaking the language and then reading the language that we tweaked and reading it and saying, is that what we intended? And that's what I'm sweating. is-
because we've got multi-bay tenant issues.
These signs.
You want these signs to be able to
Yeah,
go
we got what color
forward?
the signs are, whether they're lit, or how they're lit,
Not allowed.
where they're facing,
East, west, yeah, just about that.
multi-bay tenants,
Multi-bay
et
tenants,
cetera.
we've got
It's- it's-
multiple.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so,
And in the meantime, I mean, I need to go to John Freer and say, okay, these 4 especially, are you going to allow them to be divided again? You know, what are your intentions in the future?
Yeah.
You know,
for, what do you mean? The combining of the bays?
yeah,
Yeah,
because he might have no intention of letting that happen.
Yeah, but
He's
historically
pretty,
he
yeah,
has.
he's pretty
He's gonna
pretty
lease that.
businessman.
Most center owners, if a tenant wants 2 bays and they're
Yeah, they're
open
gonna-
side by side, they're gonna say, yep,
Yeah,
knock that wall down, let's do it.
yeah.
I mean, and the tenant then has to knock the wall down and incur that cost, and that happens all the time.
Right.
So, and it's happened twice down there in that area,
Mhm.
next door, and whatever, it's happened, at least twice that I can think of. So, it's not like it's unlikely to happen.
Well, and what has to be done really
It's
with,
most likely to happen.
with future tenants and this final master sign plan is, I mean, we need to sit down with an architect, or you need to sit down and just kind of redesign, take the trim off. I don't know, you know, and say in the future, is that what's gonna have to
No,
happen?
they've already settled that, one sign per tenant, and it has to go in that location where it was, here or there, but not both sides, not 2 places. They've already settled that.
And that's not ideal, because ideally, you would want to center the sign over the two bays.
Right.
But that's the problem, and that's why we're gonna do it differently in the future, once we get this code amended, but
Mhm.
that's just it.
Well, you leave it where if the tenant wants that, then you have to make a request for that.
That's right, that's a deviation to the signage plan, so they have to come back to us.
Back to your court, back to
Yeah,
your side.
and y'all would
That's
have
what
to-
you want it. And they would have to modify the building,
Yeah,
the lighting to go with it.
yeah.
I mean, it might be conceivably somebody wanna take the whole building. you know,
That's possible.
The whole front center section.
Right, it
Four
could
front
be.
bays, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, really,
It
cause
is
that area is
possible.
really
That is possible, yeah.
busy, you know, at that point in time, things change.
So where the heck
Oh,
do you
yeah.
put that sign? If
But-
it's the
but
four
when that
bays.
changes, then that's a whole new, that's a whole new setup. That's not, that's
He- he-
the
he-
master sign.
It has to be the size that we require, it can't be any bigger, so we're safe by the bell there.
So could I, would it make sense to call this a provisional approval that will become a final approval upon the review and approval of the board of a revised sign plan that contemplates all of the things that
That's a
you've been
great
putting
way
in
to put it,
motion?
yeah.
Do we need to
In
identify
February.
each item?
But can they
I
go
I think
ahead
that
and
Karen's got all the
manufacture
items or
Okay.
to the.
based on that?
I'm sorry?
Or are we still delaying?
Well, I
it?
think that if you call it that a provisional approval, I think that would give the tenants the ability to go ahead and get started.
Okay.
But it would be at your own risk, you know, if they were to not follow through and present the revised signage plan that meets all the criteria
Yeah,
that you're
that to me,
setting
that's
forth
enough
tonight,
of a
then it would
strain
be.
that Joe Freer has to come back.
And I think it needs to be
And I think you could put that in your motion as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, absolutely.
very
That'd be the
clear
beginning of the
to
motion. Yep.
your landlord and your tenants that
Yeah.
if they, you know, if they more or less don't abide by
Oh, yeah.
the
I'll make
provisions
that
we
clear
it's
to,
possible they're gonna have to take it down and.
Right.
John's gonna have to
not-
make-
To me, what
That's
this now
in- yeah,
allows
that's
is
in
now we
here.
can describe what each of these signs is, and we're done.
right, okay.
We can say, the urgent care sign is an internally lit sign facing south. It is we can approve, if we're inclined to, an internally lit sign facing east.
Okay,
For,
all right, let's take a shot.
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Rather than having to try to describe what a future tenant might do on that day.
Correct,
Yes.
I'm ready to do it.
Go ahead.
Well, as a group, I don't know if I can get it right by myself. One more time, one more time, Karen, read what you got, because we made changes the last time you read it. Sorry, Karen, you poor thing.
I
You
know,
really
Darren, we
teamwork
will be
effort.
talking.
Motion to provisionally approve the following conditions. Number one sign per tenant, even if they occupy multiple bays unless located on a corner lot in which they would be allowed up to 2 signs. Lighting should be centered over. the
She said
sign.
corner lot?
Yeah, not corner lot.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
That's
corner
what I was
lot.
just gonna say,
It
if
is
we
corner
could
lot.
just say,
Corner lot?
we are,
Yeah. Because if the
motion to
corner,
approve a
it refers to
provisional
the
approval.
building, and then it could be this
Right.
corner
Says up to
versus
2.
the corner
Per-
where those
I
two
guess
streets
from a
are.
real estate standpoint, lot is what's throwing me off. Go ahead.
You mean corner
on the
as in,
corner of
as
two
in a corner
streets.
that two,
Two streets,
facing two
right.
streets?
It's on the corner of 2 streets. That's a normal corner lot.
Yeah, but this one does
Right.
not meet that condition.
No.
This,
Correct,
this
so we're
tenant-
gonna address that in a minute.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
should put per elevation, so you don't get 2 on the same.
That's right.
Right.
So on a corner lot, instead of up to 2, just say
With-
1 per elevation. If
Okay.
you're on a corner lot, 1 per elevation.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this
that's
is
what we had
specific
the
to
one
this
per
master
elevation.
sign.
That's right.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
specific to this
Yes.
one,
Right.
Rereading that.
One more time, hopefully.
Am I removing lot?
No.
so, no.
1 sign per tenant, even if they occupy multiple bays, unless located on a corner lot in which they would be allowed up to 2 signs.
No, 1 sign per elevation.
1 sign per elevation.
Yes.
Actually, it should be, if they occupy a corner unit, not lot.
That's right.
No, it's gotta be the
Sign
lot
per
because you gotta get the
elevation,
street
lighting should be centered over the
thing in
sign.
there. The corner
Oh,
unit.
yeah, we're not trying to deal with it.
The
Yeah,
east
yeah,
and
yeah.
west facing signs will be required to be internally lit with a white base.
Mhm.
Number 3, urgent care facilities only that are located on the corner will be allowed up to 2 signs, 1 on the east side and 1 on the south side. No gooseneck lighting to be installed over the urgent care sign.
Oh, yeah.
On the south side.
Perfect.
Or we could maybe even just say over
On
an
either
internally
side.
lit.
Well,
either
over
side.
internal
On either
Either
side,
Yeah,
because there will
no gooseneck lighting
Over
over
Over an
urgent care
internally
sign.
lit.
Right, which
Over
is
an internal
Over an
limits.
internal inlet sign.
There you go.
All right, and what else you got? I think we got one more
An
thing.
updated master signage plan must be shown at the February PRB meeting, at which time final approval will be decided.
Can we just say, to give everybody some cushion, can we say not later than the March?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
Must be shown no later than the March.
Very good,
2019.
thank you.
Now, the only thing I did not hear in there
Represented.
is, I don't think we've addressed the red in the urgent care sign.
Excuse me?
I don't think we've addressed the allowing
red
for the
cross.
red in the urgent care sign.
Well, that's part of the urgent care. That's why this is only
Yeah, but we need to say that.
urgent care.
I know, but we haven't said that the urgent care can do red. We've only said they all have to be white if they're internally lit.
Okay, well then let's go back to
So-
the paragraph with the,
So about the
Urgent
urgent
care.
care,
and just add the sentence, an urgent care sign may also include a
The
red.
red elements, whatever.
Red element.
The red cross.
The color red.
That's
Red
the typical
medical-
cro-
Yeah.
Yeah.
The red medical
Red medical
cross.
cross.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause you say just red, you might have chicken.
Well, we got snakes.
You might have Chick-fil-A.
We only have snakes, no chickens.
That's urgent care.
Oh, Hardee's, what is that?
I know.
I'm gonna do that.
Okay.
Recommend provisional approval to include everything that Karen has on the list.
Very
Oh,
good.
did you do the second?
Do we have a second?
No,
I
for a
second.
second.
You think we got it all day?
Okay, so,
We get another stab at
yeah,
it
go ahead, Karen.
when we come back.
Yeah, but I don't think it'd be right for
You want that
purposes of this
underneath,
manufacturing
each
stuff.
west-facing sign will be required to be internally lit with a white face except for the red cross.
No,
The red
in other words, the
medical
sentence you have
cross
about the
for
urgent care,
Okay.
what is the sentence about an urgent care?
Urgent care facilities only that are located on the corner will be allowed up to 2 signs, one on the east side and one on the south side.
Yep, and then just add a sentence that says,
The face
that,
colors,
the face color for these signs may include the color red.
red.
For urgent, go ahead and say for urgent care facilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. yeah,
Or,
fine.
or may include red cross.
Red medical cross.
Yeah, I would say, I would add the medical cross, yeah.
The letter face colors would be white, you know, however you want to put that. And then
Oh, they've got it in their drawing. It
a
shows it.
red
Yeah, it's the
medical
cross with the
cross
snakes.
would be allowed.
But any urgent care.
Exactly, because I'd rather say medical cross, because all urgent cares are gonna have medical.
Exactly, yeah,
Medical
it's a
cross.
hospital or
Yeah,
any,
one's actually
yeah.
just actually
And that's the
red.
only thing
That's
that's
the
allowed.
red cross.
Exactly, then they'll have their name and they're
Exactly.
gonna have a red
Good, good,
care
good.
from now, cross there from now on. Which will be
Move the
good,
question.
because that'll be a
Call the question.
landmark.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think
got a
we
first
have a
and
motion and a second.
Mhm.
So, in that
We have
case,
no
all in
questions.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
See you in
Thank
March,
y'all.
February.
Thank you, guys, thank you.
Thank y'all for suffering through that with us.
No,
It'll be
this
better
has
on
been
the back end.
suffering, believe me.
I know.
I'm telling
And was
you,
that,
you
just
guys.
for the record, to make sure I got that?
Thank
right.
you.
Lee, did you make that motion? And
No, Donna.
Donna made the motion, and who seconded?
Lori,
Lori seconded.
I second it.
Motion.
All right, we got to skip to.
Oh, yay,
Okay.
we have a continuance. Thank you. Two of them, yay. Oh, continuances.
And Sherwin.
Are they all continuances?
No, we still have Sherwin Williams.
But we may continue that one, because no one's here to talk about it.
Oh.
Unless it's them as well.
So we might continue. Yeah, we should probably continue that.
So much to do.
I'm excited.
Okay. We will knock out item number 6 and item number 7 separately, I guess, just because they both need an action. So, as y'all can hopefully see here, there is a request to continue. I don't think we need to debate that, so.
Nope.
Anyone wanna make a
Motion to
motion?
continue.
Okay.
Second?
All
Kevin,
right.
second.
Oh, okay, you did, good.
We still
Okay,
got
all
one
in
more,
favor?
you second.
Aye.
All right, that takes us, I'm sorry, any opposed?
Nope.
Any public input? Sorry, wrong order, but, all right, motion carries unanimously.
Did we do both of them at one time?
No.
No, we
Nope.
can't.
Okay, let's have a flashback moment here. Item number 7.
Motion to continue.
All right.
Second.
She snuck
Lord
it
is-
in.
Okay, any public input?
I
Seeing
get
none.
silly when I get tired.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion carries unanimously.
Yeah, I apologize. I normally do that at the beginning of the meeting under announcements, but I totally spaced that we were continuing those.
That's okay. We got it. We got your back, ma'am.
All good.
Okay, Sherwin-Williams Master Signage Plan.
Mr. Smith is not here.
Yep.
He's ill. He called me and said he's sick, so he couldn't make it to the meeting.
Okay, is this a new building or is this?
You know,
Yep.
they're just standing still right now.
Yeah.
It's under construction.
Yeah, okay,
It's under
so
construction.
It's not likely that this is a problem to continue. Do we
No.
have any I mean, are we gonna, is it easy enough to?
Can we continue it, Tim?
Yes,
Well, do we need to
but
continue it, I
I think
guess
there's
is my
only
point.
4 signs. I mean, there's 3 other tenants in Sherwin-William. I mean, I agree. It's under construction. I don't think continuing is gonna be an issue.
Okay.
But
I mean, just looking at the, they're pretty standard stuff.
yeah, it follows the code.
Do we have any corner or multi-bay tenant issues? It
Well-
looks like we could, maybe.
They can have it's on four roads. It's got roads on all 4 sides. So,
Okay.
So they could have
Okay,
2 on, each corner, because there's 4 roads.
So I thought the maximum signage should be 2 per tenant. So you're saying that they could have 4?
no, well,
Well, they could have 2, 1 on each corner.
Okay, yeah.
he's saying you got 4 corners that are on corner
Right.
lots, all 4 corners of the building.
Right, but then
I'll-
that means that you could have 4 signs? No, I thought the maximum is 2,
Well,
so.
2, if you,
You're only asking.
you have to have,
You could have
the
4,
whole
yeah, 2
suite has to
tenants.
be on that corner, because sometimes they're not. You have 1 tenant here and you have 1 tenant here. But if it's 1 tenant, then you can have 1 on each.
Oh, of course, yeah, I understand.
So a maximum of 2 for 1 tenant.
Right, I understand. No, I thought it was just 1 tenant for the whole thing and have,
Well, there's 4 total.
okay.
There's Sherwin-Williams and there's 3 bays.
Okay,
currently.
okay, got it.
Oh, this is not just Sherwin-Williams signs, this is the master sign plan. Okay,
Yeah,
I
this is the
misunderstood that.
master
Oh, yeah,
sign.
I'm gonna suggest.
But there's
that we
only
definitely need to
4
continue this
total
so we can
bays.
Think about it with Q&A.
4, there's only 4 tenants for the whole building.
To continue it?
Okay.
Motion to continue.
Does everybody agree we need to? move
I
this?
second
Okay.
it.
Okay.
To continue,
Oh, I missed
somebody's
it,
got
so-
it first.
Okay, Lourdes and Tom.
I didn't say
Bob.
anything. It
Oh,
was
oh, okay, I'm sorry. Golly, man.
I didn't open my mouth. I got a reputation here.
Golly, we
Okay.
gotta stop these from going this late.
We sound alike.
All right.
That's great. We
Yeah.
got great voices.
I'm just saying.
Okay, there's no one to talk about it, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we got one more item here, which is,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Kevin,
adjourn.
Kevin just made it?
Second.
Oh,
I guess we
We can talk
let's
for a
talk
second.
next month about
okay,
code enforcement junk and small cell stuff.
yep,
I don't wanna
okay.
talk about it now.
Nope, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Second was, who seconded? Kevin? No, Kevin made the motion. Donna seconded. All right.
Tim, can we next month put some, a reminder that let's touch base again on the small cell stuff that we discussed at the last meeting and the code enforcement stuff?
Everything okay?
Small cell, mm-hmm.
Give me about 5